Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI, your home for the politically homeless, streaming live at KVI.com and on the KVI app. If you want to be part of the most dangerous show on the airwaves, call or text the Warrior Injury Law Studio line at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Coming up this hour, I think we figured out who was using the auto pen, and are federal workers in Seattle triggered by ICE? We'll give you those details, but before we get to any of that, time for your daily dose of adrenaline.
You want me to stick this into my heart? Are you f***ing nuts?
Are we on the verge of peace in the Middle East? Those are the announcements we're hearing out of the Trump administration. Is it actually true? And why is the media trying so hard to disprove that the U.S. and Israel completely obliterated the nuclear facilities in Iran? Keep those questions in your mind for a second. I want to tell you something that's going to seem like a tangent, but I promise you it's not. I hate reality television. I got my own life. I don't want to watch other people's lives on TV. I want to watch explosions. I want to watch fake stories about spaceships and laser swords. That's what I want to watch. I don't want to watch reality TV garbage. But I saw this trending today, and I was fascinated by what it was. So there's a TV show apparently called Love Island. Definitely not a reality show I would watch even if I watched reality shows. There's a little bit too much stuff in Love Island. Not my cup of tea. Not my kind of show. So apparently there's a little bit of a scandal in Love Island. Why? Because there's a Jewish-Canadian guy named Elon Bibas and a Palestinian-American woman named Huda Mustafa. Now, apparently, there's this scene, and it's on the internet, where they ask Huda who she thinks would be a best kisser and who she wants to make out with. Everybody on the show is very attractive, spends a lot of time in the gym. Let's just put it that way. Watches what they eat. And she chooses this guy, Elon Bibas, and then there is a full-on makeout session. And everybody on the internet loses their minds. Now, I thought we all wanted peace in the Middle East. Who's losing their minds? All the people with the Hamas flags in their bio. All the people who are on the other side from me. Why? How dare she kiss a Jew? Oh, you guys are real tolerant. Nation of peace, real tolerant all of a sudden. They're losing their minds. Kled Mazik, who is an activist who advocates for Israel, says suddenly the same people who never shut up about liberating Palestine by any means necessary are furious that a Palestinian woman made her own choice and it happened to involve kissing a Jew on TV. So now, all these anti-apartheid activists don't know what to do with themselves because now you've got a woman from Palestine who's clearly not a victim of apartheid or anything else, doing what she does on live TV and choosing the Jewish guy. It's never been about freedom for the Palestinians. It's about policing what they do and everything else. And all their activism, when actual equity appears, it all melts away. All melts away. So now, getting back to one of my original questions. Why is the media so desperate to prove that the nuclear strikes were unsuccessful in Iran? We're on what, day 5 of this? So hang on a second. They do the bombing on Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And we're still talking about whether or not they were successful with CNN leading the way. Why are they trying? Because this actually shut down the Iranian nuclear program. Whereas all the diplomacy and all the lies pushed by the media, oh, the Iran deal, it's going to save us all. Do you remember a video the Avengers did? The Avengers did a video when Barack Obama was president. That's how long we've had them Marvel movies for. When Barack Obama was president, they did this movie that if we didn't approve the Iran deal, we were all going to die. And you had to be a superhero and save the world and call your congressperson to support the Iran deal. All the Iran deal did was move Iran closer to a nuclear weapon and fund terrorism with your taxpayer dollars. The media has been pushing this nonsense for years, and they've been made a fool of because they claim that that's the only way you can do peace. They fell back on these terrible bribery systems that they thought would bring peace to the Middle East, and none of them worked. Who came in and upset the order? Donald Trump. He said, let's actually make peace by making business deals, not by bribing people. Democrats always want to give money to everybody and think it's going to work out. How's that work out for the public schools? How'd that work out for the Middle East? It didn't. Do you hear a little difference between past presidents talking about Iran and Donald Trump talking about Iran?
You need a montage. Even Rocky had a montage.
We work to counter Iran's efforts to develop nuclear weapons and missile technology.
Iran should not have a nuclear weapon. Period.
I have stated that Iran will never be allowed to obtain a nuclear weapon.
We will not allow Iran to acquire a nuclear weapon.
Iran's key nuclear enrichment facilities have been completely and totally obliterated.
That's why the media is trying to prove it wrong. Because they don't want to give Trump the win, and they don't want to admit they were wrong for the last 50 years. Iran and its proxies have killed hundreds of Americans. And yet you've got CNN saying, no, this didn't accomplish anything. But meanwhile, last week they were saying, we're not close to a bomb. Now, after everything's been bombed, you're saying we're closer to a bomb than we were before? I can't believe we're even having this conversation. But something has changed in the past 24 hours. Something changed today, as a matter of fact. All of a sudden, CNN is moderating its message. We were just asking questions. We weren't pushing a fake narrative. We were just asking questions. We need to hold people accountable. Really? Like you held Joe Biden and his administration accountable? The most shameless version of this was Jake Tapper. Jake Tapper, who never asked a single question about the auto pen, about who was actually running the country, about Jill Biden running cabinet meetings. Jake Tapper is now all mad about CNN being called out for reporting fake news for 5 straight days.
Asking questions is literally our job, demanding facts and answers, instead of just taking a president's word for it.
I'm sorry. Instead of just taking a president's word for it, what'd you do the last 4 years? Barack Obama, oh, Barack, oh, President Obama, we love you so much. We're not actually going to see what Obamacare is going to do to the healthcare industry. We just want it because it's socialism. Woohoo! Now CNN is all mad that people are calling them out. It's one thing to say, how do you know you hit your targets? And then they present evidence. And you say, interesting, show us the evidence. For 5 days, CNN and the rest of the lamestream media has been saying, nope, you didn't hit it. Nope, the uranium got out. Nope, you didn't accomplish your goal. Iran is now closer to a nuclear weapon than they were before. This is crazy, by the way. Absolutely crazy. And now that the Trump administration has laid everything out, CNN looks like complete idiots. You have Iran, Israel, and the U.S. all saying the same thing. Are we close to peace in our time? Wait a second. That sounds kind of messianic to me. At the end of days, Iran, Israel, and the U.S. are all saying the exact same thing. Here's the press secretary slamming CNN today.
This was a low-confidence preliminary intelligence assessment, and the entirety of that assessment was not leaked to the media. Only tidbits of that assessment were leaked to CNN. And we have seen this playbook run before, where you have people in the intelligence community or perhaps on Capitol Hill, we don't know, but I believe the FBI is investigating to find out who that leaker was because it's illegal and they should be held accountable for that, leaked bits and pieces of an intel assessment to push a false narrative. And it's to the same reporter, I will add, Natasha Bertrand of CNN, who has done this in the past. In 2020, it was Natasha Bertrand who had 51 intelligence analysts falsely lie to her, but she still put it on paper for some reason, that the Hunter Biden laptop story was Russian disinformation. We all know that's not true, right? We can all agree on that now. That was a lie from the intelligence community. Also in 2020, this same reporter, Natasha Bertrand, wrote that a top intel agency ruled out the man-made lab leak theory of the coronavirus origins. Again, the president was right about that. This reporter wrote a lie from the intelligence community to seek a narrative she wanted to prove, and guess what? We now know that's the truth. Also, in 2024, Bertrand pushed the suckers and losers hoax. She also pushed the fine people hoax, which was taking the president's words purposely out of context. And then last October, and I believe this is notable, Natasha Bertrand published an article in Politico from the intelligence agency. She said that John Ratcliffe was speaking without any evidence when he said Iran was attempting to undermine President Trump's presidential campaign. And then we, of course, found out that was absolutely true. In fact, the Biden administration declassed an intel report which said they had high confidence that Iran had done exactly what Ratcliffe alleged. They did run an influence campaign to hurt President Trump's candidacy. In fact, we know the Iranians tried to take President Trump's life. And so this is a reporter who has been unfortunately used by people who dislike Donald Trump in this government to push fake and false narratives. She should be ashamed of herself. And that's not what reporting is. Journalism is trying to find the facts and the truth. And this week we saw this same reporter being used to push a fake narrative to try to undermine the President of the United States, and more importantly, the brave fighter pilots who conducted one of the most successful operations in United States history. And I think the American people fully know that this operation was a complete and total success.
Boom. Roasted. She is 1,000% right on calling out that reporter for pushing this false narrative just because she hates Donald Trump. What'd she list there? A dozen examples of her pushing other false stories? Look, we get a lot of tips here. Let me give you a little peek behind the curtain. Mike knows this. We get a lot of tips at the show, and we want them to be true. And unfortunately, they aren't all true. Or I should say, fortunately, they aren't all true, because some of these are really, really bad. Just 5 minutes before the show, I got a tip, which you're going to hear about later. I had to verify it. I had to make sure it was legitimate, because you can't go on air with fake news. But this reporter has no problem doing it whatsoever and always relies on anonymous sources. You can't do that. You're pushing a false narrative. And this reporter has a track record of it. They're also not just trying to get at Trump, but they're trying to protect the legacy of Joe Biden and Barack Obama, their king. Talking about no kings, by the way. Oh, Barack Obama, I bow before you. Greatest president ever. They're trying to protect them. And they're the ones whose fault this all is, that we even had to use those bombs in the first place.
The Iranian regime was weeks away from being able to produce a nuclear weapon that would threaten the entire world before President Trump took this decisive action on Saturday night to obliterate their nuclear capabilities. The contrast in leadership could not be more clear. Barack Obama and Joe Biden sent pallets of cash, American taxpayer dollars, in a failed attempt to buy the Iranian regime's compliance with a weak and ineffective deal. President Trump sent a fleet of American warplanes to destroy Iran's ability to produce a nuclear weapon. The United States and the entire world are safer because of this president's decisiveness. Despite agenda-driven leaks by the fake news media aimed at undermining this incredible accomplishment achieved by President Trump and our brave fighter pilots, there is broad consensus emerging already that Iran's nuclear capabilities were indeed destroyed. The United States, Israel, the United Nations, and even Iran all agree they can no longer build a nuclear weapon. So why did the president immediately turn to obliterating after the Iranian nuclear threat? Securing peace. Within 48 hours of the devastating strike, President Trump and his team brokered a historic ceasefire between Israel and Iran and officially ended the 12-day war. The Middle East is now shifting away from chaos and bloodshed and moving toward the beginning stages of a new era of peace and stability that President Trump has long called on them to achieve. This was unthinkable at this time last week, and this is what peace through strength looks like.
By the way, here's something else to think about, my friends. The other thing you should be thinking about is the fact that within all this, with everything going on, with all this stuff, did CNN ever question anything Hamas gave them information? Did they ever question it at all? No. They never questioned any of it. They just said, sure, whatever you guys say is true. Oh, Israel bombed a hospital? Sure, we'll believe it with no proof whatsoever. Oh, Israel killed this many civilians? We'll believe it with no proof whatsoever. You guys ran with that before the bombs had stopped smoking. So why does the media want to keep taking out Trump's historic achievement? Because they can't even give him a single win. Even people who hate Donald Trump with every fiber of their being will acknowledge that the Abraham Accords was a huge, huge deal during his first presidency. And likely, if he had won re-election, you would have seen those things continue, and no October 7th ever would have happened. The Russia-Ukraine war wouldn't have happened. The disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan would not have happened. But now, you know why they're even more motivated to try and stop this? Because we might be on the verge of another historic peace agreement. And if Trump and his team bring that home, 2026, that's going to be a blowout, an absolute blowout. Here's what happened. This morning, news leaked. It's from an outlet called Israel Hayom, which is an Israeli outlet. So far, we haven't gotten confirmation from outlets in the United States or the Trump administration, but we're trying to do so. Here's the report. Shortly after U.S. B-2 bombers struck Iran's nuclear facilities, Trump, Netanyahu, Rubio, and Dermer held a call described as euphoric. Beyond celebrating the strike, they discussed a possible peace plan for the Middle East. Here's what it would be, according to the outlet. The Gaza war would be over within 2 weeks. The UAE, that's the Emirates, they're in the Abraham Accords, Egypt, and others, including Saudi Arabia, would take over running Gaza, which is what I've been saying we want to happen from the beginning, not Egypt, but other countries. That's what I want to happen from the beginning. I'm not going to get everything I want in this. The Hamas leaders are exiled. All the hostages are released. In Gaza, you have voluntary immigration if they want to leave. Here's the countries you can go to, and several countries have said they would accept the Gazans. There would be a push to expand the Abraham Accords for normalization with Syria, Saudi Arabia, and other countries. And then Israel, if the Palestinian Authority reforms and isn't about paying terrorists anymore, then Israel will agree to some form of a two-state solution. However, the U.S. will recognize Israeli sovereignty over certain areas in Judea and Samaria. That's the West Bank. That's the peace plan I've wanted for so long. That is peace through strength. That is expanding the Abraham Accords. Can you imagine if there is actually a true and lasting peace in the Middle East and President Trump is the one who is the one behind it? Can you imagine that? They're not trying to stop all this because they care so much about Iran. They're trying to do this to discredit the president so he doesn't get the win. They hate America. They don't want to see America win. They're impugning the reputation of our brave men and women in the skies and on the ground who completed one of the most successful operations in U.S. military history. And they're doing it for politics. Because if they can hang a loss around Trump and snatch defeat from the jaws of victory, they're happy with that. They're happy with that. It's absolutely crazy. The mainstream media has become the enemy of the people, and CNN is the one leading the way. We go to the Warrior Injury Law studio line. Take a call from Mike in Kent. Mike, what's going on?
Yeah, I heard you going on about the Love Island thing, and I'm kind of with you. I don't watch that kind of stuff myself. But if I recall correctly, and you can probably have, there was a peace concert on October 7th where many of the young women and young men were murdered, raped, mutilated. And that was a peace concert, if I recall correctly.
Yes.
That's what I thought. So this is like what you saw on this Love Island kind of falls to the course of how these people think.
Yeah.
And the reality is, you know, I get a lot of news from the Middle East. I have a friend who's Arab, by the way, who was in the IDF.
Yeah.
Which you don't hear about that.
No, of course not. Defeats the narrative.
Yeah. I mean,
apartheid. That's the worst apartheid ever. If there's apartheid, Israel sucks at it. Yeah.
Yeah, they're really bad at it. But you know, the other thing too is Iran had threatened Rome with a nuclear device at one point or another. I don't remember. It was one of their presidents was talking about that would be the way to fulfill the Islamic conquest of the world, and he actually made that threat. Do they not remember this?
No, they don't remember the death to America yesterday that they were chanting in Parliament. Literally yesterday they were doing that. And they want to destroy Europe.
Yeah.
And here's the other thing. They don't want to destroy Israel because they want the land. Iran doesn't want Israel. They just don't like Jews. But the media is now trying to cover for that.
And Europe is referred to as Western Maghreb.
Yes.
Maghreb? Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
And I mean, we talk about the English, the 100-Year War. The Styrian estates, Austria and Germany, were fighting the Ottoman Turks for 400 years. 90% of the GDP of Austria was going towards that, if you want to learn a little history. So it's kind of, people just forget history, and it just...
Yeah.
They don't.
They don't. And here's the other thing. History has a long memory, but unfortunately the mainstream media doesn't. Mike, appreciate the call. Appreciate the perspective. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, you give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Bob in the 509 says, Ari, it's easy to understand why legacy media is doing everything they can to imply that recent American and Israeli efforts in Iran were ineffective. It's because our legacy media has become a dedicated fifth column, unless an anointed member of their own side is in power. They hate everything about this country unless it's firmly moving us towards a socialist left, hence their unwavering support for all things Obama and Biden. Urban white liberals under 45 years old have been fully co-opted by efforts aimed at them since childhood, espousing in Alinsky's rules for radicals, control public education, and control the media. Both were successfully accomplished years ago, and both have been pushing the joys of socialism when things are run by the correct people. Amazes me that most of the Republican leadership is unaware of the Alinsky book, while Democrats have been using it as a guide for nearly 5 decades. Bob is 100% correct in everything he just said. Otherwise, you wouldn't have Mamdani as the nominee to be the next mayor of New York by the Democrat Party. Lots more to discuss as the show continues, my friends. Speaking of socialism, looks like that socialist influence in Seattle is wearing on even our federal employees who are now mad ICE is doing their jobs. We'll tell you all about it when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. You remember last week when the Seattle police chief was trying to make a bigger name for himself by saying the Trump administration was going to come arrest him and he might end up in jail? You remember that insanity? Because he was saying, I'm going to protect the rights of the protesters. I might end up in jail because of the Trump administration. No, that wasn't what he was saying. What he was saying, it was in reference to he wasn't going to work with ICE. But now he's kind of changing his story a little bit. In an interview with Como News after his confirmation hearing, he also clarified his headline-making comments that he's willing to go to jail to protest potential conflicts with federal policy. What I actually said was, I'm prepared to go to jail if I need to protect the First Amendment and constitutional rights of people. That includes what you do for a living and your ability to report as a member of the press. Hey, have you arrested the guy who assaulted Cam Higbee yet? Because he's a member of the press, and you told your officers to stand by while he was getting the crap beaten out of him by a bunch of Antifa people. So, Sean Barnes, a little bit of hypocrisy there. Plus, what did you exactly say before that?
I want to be clear. To protect anyone in Seattle from anyone who comes to this city with the intention to hurt them or inhibit their First Amendment rights. And what that means is, at some point, I will probably go to jail.
Okay. Well, you didn't protect Cam Higbee, did you now? No, not at all. In fact, you told your officers to stand down. You protected the rights of the rioters and allowed them to continuing rioting outside the federal courthouse. But no, you didn't protect the rights of the journalist. So, yeah, we know who's going to be running the Seattle Police Department. Meanwhile, who's working in the federal building? By the way, I don't know if you've seen the federal building. It is a disaster. It's an absolute disaster. And when our friend Andrea Suarez showed up to clean up the place with a bunch of people from We Heart Seattle, the feds stopped her. Talk about bureaucratic nonsense. They came out of the building and go, nope, you can't do that. So it's okay to spray paint the building, but not okay to clean up the building. They said, well, it's historic building. Oh, you think all that graffiti sitting on a historic building is good for it? You know that stuff stains over time, the longer it sits there for. Talk about bureaucratic nonsense. Then I saw this article from My Northwest. Union workers are speaking up against immigration enforcement at the Henry M. Jackson Federal Building in downtown Seattle. They held a picket outside the federal building Wednesday, demanding an end to ICE raids and arrests in workplaces. So the lefty union people are mad about the ICE raids. You're not mad about the building getting vandalized. Just making sure you're not mad about reporters getting beaten up. You're not mad about them taking over cars, attacking cars that are driving through downtown Seattle, lighting fires in the middle of the street, being trapped in that building by those people. You're not mad about that. But you're mad about the ICE raids? Could you be more political? Well, we know who the rights go to in this city, right? A woman who was struck in the eye with a so-called rubber bullet fired by a Washington State patrol trooper during the 2020 BLM riots, has settled a lawsuit for $825,000, according to court records. Now, I saw this story in the Seattle Times, and I was skeptical, because normally when we see these settlements, there are always rioters, and they always have stuff in their past, but this looked like some woman who was caught in the crossfire. My issue here is that the article in the Seattle Times has a different story about what happened to her than her GoFundMe page. Right after she gets shot, the GoFundMe page says she was standing there holding a sign when all of a sudden this crowd came up to her, mobbed her, and then she was in the middle of it. Okay, I don't believe you, but sure. Then you have this one here who says, no, she wasn't holding a sign. There was just other stuff going on and she was in the wrong place. Which story is it? Even if the story deviates a little bit, now I start questioning all of this. Are the police officers getting settlements from Antifa? Most of the Antifa activists weren't arrested during all that. Yet we keep paying out these protesters, keep paying out these rioters, keep paying out these activists, time and time and time again. Is Cam Higbee going to get a settlement from the city because the police were standing right there and didn't do anything to stop him getting the crap kicked out of him by Antifa?
How about no?
Exactly. We go to the Warrior Injury Law Studio line, take a call from John in Redmond. John, what's up, man?
Hello, Ari. On a different program, I heard someone remark that CNN should be torn down to the studs. But before they do any demo, I think they should install a floor drain and drain the 6 inches of crap off the floor.
That's
and
graphic.
Then install effective plumbing before it happens again.
Well, I'll tell you this with regards to tearing down CNN, but they're so entertaining. They're so entertaining as they make themselves become more and more irrelevant. Look, one of the best things for the Republicans is The View. You know why? Because every time they say something stupid, it makes all Democrats look stupid. Anytime CNN says something, it's great clips for us to show how bad the mainstream media is. And you know what? The more they keep doing this, the more viewers they are losing, which is fascinating to watch, by the way.
Yeah, it's more food for your program.
Exactly. Well, what would I do without CNN? Where would I would find plenty of content, my friend. I promise you I would.
Thank you, Ari.
Yep, such a pleasure. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, you give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. When we come back, we may have figured out who is actually controlling the auto pen, and now that person has gone to ground. Methinks you're guilty. J'accuse! Tell you all about it when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. So who is running the auto pen? We know there was an auto pen. We know it was used regularly. And we know the Biden administration was using it for pretty important things. Well, apparently the stooge who is in control of the auto pen, as we discussed yesterday, her name is Neera Tanden. And she testified behind a closed-door subcommittee yesterday on Capitol Hill. And when she was done, she came out and said this.
Thank you. I just spoke with the House Oversight Committee, Majority and Minority Council. I answered every question, was just to discuss my public service, and it was a thorough process, and I'm glad I answered every question.
Was there an effort to...
Wow. Answered every question. That's our bar, right?
Joe, you did such a great job. You answered every question. You knew all the facts.
Oh, dear. Oh, dear. That moment was mentioned in Jake Tapper's book. Now, I know what a lot of you think about Jake Tapper and his book, but I read it cover to cover, finished it in 48 hours. And I'll tell you something about Jake Tapper's book. Assuming everything in it is true, I'm furious at Jake Tapper because he knew all this was going on and didn't say anything, but also I'm furious at everybody else who knew all this was going on and didn't say anything, and nobody should vote for a Democrat ever, ever, ever again. I tried to poke holes in Jake Tapper's book. I wanted to find it to be not truthful. But we had Adam Smith on last week, asked him about his section of the book. He goes, yeah, that's all true. It all happened. So I have every reason to believe that Jake Tapper's book is factual. Well, Jake Tapper's book makes the assumption that Anthony Bernal, who was Jill Biden's chief of staff, was the one actually in charge of the auto pen. Hey, guys. It's been a while since I brushed up on civics. Can you tell me where the First Lady's chief of staff is in the presidential order of succession? Can you tell me who gets to vote on the First Lady's chief of staff? Hey, guys, we like Melania Trump. Does she need a chief of staff? No. Neither did Jill Biden. How many staff members do we have for the First Lady's office? So who is probably running the country? Jill Biden. We know this from how she walked around Joe Biden, how she guided around Joe Biden, how she ran cabinet meetings. We saw that with our own two eyes. Now, you may say, Ari, this is all conspiracy theories. Ari, you and Jake Tapper, you're crazy. Yeah, but it's starting to line up more and more. So, when Neera Tanden, who was part of that team, testifies yesterday, you know who was supposed to be testifying also? Anthony Bernal. Jill Biden's work husband, a.k.a. chief of staff, and then he backed out of testifying. Now he's been subpoenaed. Likely, my guess is, he was the one instructing Neera Tanden to use the auto pen, even though he was Jill's chief of staff, not Joe's, who was actually running the country. You know that the chief of staff in the White House is basically the co-president. It's basically one's the idea guy, one's the one who actually carries it out. So that's what you're seeing in this White House. That's what you're seeing right now with Donald Trump and his chief of staff, and they're very, very effective. Where does the chief of staff of the White House even fall into the presidential order of succession? Oh, right, they don't. But it's one thing to say, I'm delegating this to you. Do you get to delegate stuff to the First Lady's chief of staff? And why is the First Lady's chief of staff weighing in on executive orders, directing what to sign? Why won't he testify? And where is he now? Who is actually running the country? Who was actually running the country? This is the question I have again and again and again. And I don't think we're going to get a good answer to it. Who was our commander-in-chief? Because it wasn't Joe Biden. We've all seen what he was like, right? Do you see the difference with this administration versus the last one? In the last administration, was there anybody you could point to and say that person's competent? Out of the entire cabinet, was there a single person? No. Meanwhile, today, here's the press conference they did to roast the mainstream media when you have General Dan Raisin Kane on the show talking about the successful operation.
When the crews went to work on Friday, they kissed their loved ones goodbye, not knowing when or if they'd be home. Late on Saturday night, their families became aware of what was happening. And on Sunday, when those jets returned from Whiteman, their families were there. Flags flying and tears flowing. I have chills literally talking about this. The jets rejoined into a formation of 4 airplanes followed by a formation of 3 and came up overhead Whiteman proudly in the traffic pattern, pitching out to land right over the base and landing to the incredible cheers of their families who sacrifice and serve right alongside their family members. Like I said, there were a lot of flags and a lot of tears. One commander told me this is a moment in the lives of our families that they will never forget. That, my friends, is what America's Joint Force does. We think, we develop, we train, we rehearse, we test, we evaluate every single day. And when the call comes to deliver, we do so. I could not be more proud standing up here today of our Joint Force. I'm filled with gratitude that I get to tell their story.
Do you remember anybody of the Biden administration talking that proudly about America? No, it was always how racist we were and how we have changes to make and how everything's so historic. We've made all these changes. By the way, Pete Hegseth, Secretary of Defense, calling out the media to their faces. Calling out the media to their faces for all the fake news.
Because you, and I mean specifically you, the press, specifically you, the press corps, because you cheer against Trump so hard, it's like in your DNA and in your blood to cheer against Trump, because you want him not to be successful so bad, you have to cheer against the efficacy of these strikes. You have to hope maybe they weren't effective. Maybe the way the Trump administration has represented them isn't true. So let's take half-truths, spun information, leaked information, and then spin it. Spin it in every way we can to try to cause doubt and manipulate the public mind over whether or not our brave pilots were successful.
He's exactly right. If this was the Biden administration, one, the operation never would have happened. But two, if the operation did happen, first of all, the media wouldn't be asking these questions. And if by some miracle they were asking these questions, all of a sudden they would be saying, yeah, well, we can't trust the military. Get rid of the military. Because that's what the last administration was. It's a night and day difference. That's why recruiting numbers are through the roof. In fact, I haven't seen the latest recruiting numbers, but the military recruiting numbers were through the roof before this raid. You know how when Top Gun, the first one, came out, everybody wanted to fly an F-14, and the Navy recruiting numbers went through the roof? Now I bet you everybody wants to fly a B-2 bomber. I bet you now everybody wants to be a pilot and fly a B-2 bomber so they can take out Iran. We go to the Warrior Injury Law Studio line, take a call from Leonard in Shoreline. Leonard, what's up, man?
Hey, nothing much. You know, you were talking about Chief Barnes and said he would rather go to jail for not working with ICE. Well, I can do you one better. I heard something on the Faulkner Focus this morning at Fox News about a woman over in Los Angeles County who works for the government there, and she started talking like a gang member, acted like a gang member, and then started referring to ICE agents as gang members.
Oh yeah, we spoke about her. We spoke about her on the show yesterday, Leonard. She's the one who actually wanted the gang members in L.A. to go head to head with the ICE agents. And now she's under investigation because she's literally calling for violence against ICE agents by violent gangs in Los Angeles. Leonard, appreciate the call. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Don't forget, coming up at 4 o'clock, my friends, is when we're going to do our Take the Trip or Keep the Cash. Your chance to win $3,000 cash or a trip to Florida. We'll tell you all about it. But when we come back next, a judge has tossed a legal challenge to Washington's race-based housing program. We'll tell you all about it when we come back. You'll listen to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. I have an apology for some of our listeners. Some of you emailed me, and it's taken me a while to get back to you, and let me explain why. It's in regard to the Covenant Home Ownership Program. You might remember this program. It's the one which Democrats put in place a couple of legislative cycles ago, where what it is they did a survey. And they did this survey, and they said, who was affected by redlining in Seattle? And what they found out was Jews and Asians and African Americans and others were affected by redlining in Seattle. We all know this. So they came up with a plan. We want to make up for historical racism, a.k.a. reparations. So here's how we're going to do it. We're going to give down payment, zero free interest down payments on mortgages to African Americans. Wait a second. Hang on. Did you forget a few people there? You forgot a few classifications? That's called discrimination. That's called racism. You can't do that. And then they made it worse. So they've already excluded the Jews and the Asians and some other groups that were also redlined. And instead what they did was in this legislative session, they decided, you know what? You don't have to pay those back. So we're going to do free down payments for houses for anybody who is historically redlined, but you don't have to prove you were redlined. So if you moved here and your skin matches the right color, and you moved here last week and your family was never here before, who wants a down payment for their house? You get a down payment, and you get a down payment, not you Jews, and you get a down payment, not you Asians. So when this thing came out, I put the call out on the radio for who is being discriminated against by this program, and we're going to start looking for lawyers, and we're going to try and take this thing on. So I've spent some of you emailed me, and some of you I've been in touch with. I've spent the past couple weeks looking for some lawyers. And the problem is, a lot of them do business with Washington State, so they can't sue Washington. A lot of them do business with Seattle, so they can't sue Seattle. However, it turns out there was a lawsuit already in effect. And some of you, what I'm trying to do is get in touch with the people behind this lawsuit because they get another bite at the apple. Let me tell you what's going on. According to the Seattle Times, a federal judge dismissed a lawsuit against the program on Tuesday, marking a win for the state, but offering the groups fighting the program 2 weeks to refile their case and try again. The legal battle stems from an effort that has helped hundreds of home buyers of color. Oh, yeah, let's forget that this thing is actually excluding people. Across Washington, in its early months of operation, will also draw on conservative scrutiny. No, anybody who can see they're being excluded, Seattle Times. The outcome of the lawsuit will decide whether Washington can proceed with the program amid a broader pullback from diversity programs. Washington lawmakers created the Covenant Homeownership Program in 2023, offering zero-interest loans to cover down payments and closing costs for certain first-time home buyers of color who meet income and other requirements. A fee on recorded real estate documents funds the program, which began issuing loans last summer. The loans are open to first-time home buyers who lived in the state before the Fair Housing Act outlawed discrimination in 1968, or whose parents, grandparents, great-grandparents lived in the state. If the person who lived in the state was Black, Hispanic, Native American, Alaskan, Native Hawaiian, or other Pacific Islander. You leave out a few people there? How about the Japanese? They were excluded. How about the Jews? They were excluded. You left out a few groups there. The nonprofit Foundation Against Intolerance and Racism sued to block the program last year, arguing it illegally leaves out white homebuyers and others who don't qualify. Guys, you're fighting the wrong argument. If anybody from FAIR is listening, the argument you should be fighting, forget the white people argument. Yes, it's racist against white people too. I got some Asian clients for you. I got some Jewish clients for you. And what you should do is make the left admit that they're discriminating against other minority groups and say, you can either do this program for everybody, which will bankrupt it and it should be shut down, or you can do this program for nobody because this thing will not survive a Supreme Court challenge. So the lawsuit named Steve Walker, head of Washington State Housing Finance Commission, who sought to have the case dismissed. United States District Judge John Choon sided with Walker, finding FAIR had failed to provide enough evidence that the homebuyers it represents have met all the other qualifications for the program. Guys, stop trying the white person argument. We can win this the other way. I've got people for you. We can do this. We can win. We can shut this thing down. So those of you that have emailed me, I got back to some of you last night when I saw this ruling. I'm going to get back to the rest of you this weekend. I think we can work together and take this thing down. or you're going to get a really nice settlement and a free down payment from the city. So it's win-win. Absolutely win-win for everybody. We'll talk about it more as the show continues. But when we come back, my friends, your chance to take the trip or keep the cash. And no one is paying their car tabs here in Washington. Woohoo! Everybody's following my example. Wait, that's bad. We'll tell you what's going on when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI, your home for the politically homeless, streaming live at KVI.com and on the KVI app. If you want to be part of the most dangerous show on the airwaves, call or text the Warrior Injury Law Studio line at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Coming up this hour, is Amazon messing with their delivery schedule because of quote-unquote unrest? Yeah, we've got that exclusive story for you. But before we get to any of that, my friends, you work hard. You need a getaway? Perhaps some financial relief. Well, don't worry, my friends. We've got you covered with KVI's Take the Trip or Keep the Cash.
The golden age of America begins right now.
Woo! Woo! I love that we get that live studio audience back just for a few minutes, for a few seconds every day. It's really nice. This week, you can get away to Key West, Florida with dinner in Margaritaville, sunsets at Mallory Square, and no car needed. Or have a chance at $3,000 of cold, hard cash. All you have to do is text the keyword I give you, and just the keyword I give you, not your phone number, not your name, not Ari, you're so good looking, not your address, no other information, and only do it once, just the keyword. You text that keyword to us, and we'll get you in a daily drawing to get a $50 Daniel's Broiler gift card, and you could win the trip or keep the cash with KVI. Today's keyword is, drum roll please. Oh, wait, we're not going to do a drum roll. But today's keyword is jet, J-E-T. Exactly. Who's buzzing the tower? No, don't buzz the tower. Jet, as in Boeing makes jumbo jet at their warehouse, as in Maverick flies a jet. J-E-T. Text that to 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. You have from now until 5 p.m. to enter. Your next chance at winning comes tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. during the morning ride with Phil and Zach. So remember, text the word jet. Is that Air Force One? Holy cow, the president's coming to see us. He flies a big jet. It's the best jet you'll ever see, except for that one from Qatar. I love my flying palace. We'll get all of it. So remember to check out danielsbroiler.com to reserve a table, place your takeout delivery order, and more. Speaking of transportation, by the way, I know Mike loves these things so much. The death scooters are back in the news again. According to Como News.
Death, horrible death.
We know how much Mike loves the death scooters. Citizens.
Super dead.
Citizens who...
Yeah, if you drive a Lime scooter, you might be...
super dead.
Exactly. Or you know what? I remember that video. I still remember this video. I have to bring it up every time.
Yeah.
I saved it on my computer. I have it as scooter death, which is even funnier. Somebody, I assume one of our unsheltered neighbors, threw a Lime scooter in 2023 or something like that off one of the overpasses of I-5 in downtown Seattle, and you see it bounce and bounce as cars swerve out of the way. Yeah, really good to put, these heavy metal objects everywhere for our unsheltered neighbors to use, however they choose to do so when they're in the throes of drug addiction or mental health issues. Okay, let's assume you're just using one to, go to a concert or go to a sporting event or something. All right, citizens spotted a man wearing a Hawaiian shirt riding a scooter erratically. Wait, Mike doesn't wear Hawaiian shirts. Okay, it's not Mike. For a second there, I was a little worried that it might be Mike.
My whereabouts could not be verified at that hour.
And Mr. KVI's out of town, so we know it wasn't him. Okay, he doesn't wear Hawaiian shirts either. Reported him to Issaquah police on Tuesday. They told police he was weaving in and out of traffic at varying speeds and even appeared to nod off at times. How is he different than anybody else on one of those scooters? Seriously, they weave in and out of traffic. Those things are death machines. I hate the scooters. It didn't take long for officers to find the man who was riding with his hazard lights on and leaning to one side, according to Issaquah police. An officer pulled him over and asked him to dismount the scooter. The rider lifted his right leg over the backside of the bike. Bike or scooter? I think they mean scooter. Was it a bike or a scooter? All right, now I don't believe your whole story, people. This is conflicting information here.
I have a theory, and
yes.
I was hearing our friends in the newsroom reporting on the same thing. I think it's a Vespa. That's so when we're talking about a scooter, my theory is that what this is. I would prefer to think that it's a Lime scooter, but it might not be.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's probably
because those things cause
death. Death. Horrible death.
You know, there's this place in Georgetown. I'm not sure if it's still there. It's a Vespa scooter type dealership thing that's there in Georgetown. And from time to time, I would see Vespa gangs lining up over there, and I would just laugh. Oh, you're so tough in your little Vespa gang. It's just, you're all European or something. I get why you need them in Europe. Very narrow streets. I've seen enough of those Jason Bourne, James Bond movies to know that. I get it. But yeah, here in America, get a Harley or something. That's just going to put that there. Okay. So he lifts his right leg over the backside of the bike and gracefully fell onto the ground due to his loss of balance, ultimately landing on his butt. Was Joe Biden driving the bike? This all sounds familiar. The officer who helped him up said he immediately smelled alcohol, and the man was so drunk he could barely stand. Police said when he asked how much they had to drink, the man exclaimed, "Not much." Well, I think we've all done that when our wives ask, right? How much have you had to drink? Oh, I don't know. I'm fine. I'm good. Barely a whisper. What are you talking about? Right, none of us ever do that.
It's not my fault. I'd have bought the normal size cans if they'd have been selling them. I'm the victim here.
Exactly.
It's not my fault.
Exactly. That guy just kept pouring me shots. Everybody wanted to have a l'chaim. It's not my fault, right? The man voluntarily tried to complete the field sobriety test, but didn't have much luck. Officers said it was clear he was intoxicated and arrested the 47-year-old from Sammamish for suspicion of DUI, operating without a required ignition interlock device, required due to a previous DUI. He was booked into the Issaquah City Jail. The man declined to take a breathalyzer test, so police obtained a warrant for a blood draw. The sample will be sent to the state crime lab. Police said the results usually take about a year. I'm sorry. What? A year? A year for a blood test. Oh, this is what happens when the government's running things, right? Oh, please give us socialized medicine. We want it right now. While the story may be humorous, Como News writes, police said driving under the influence is no joke, and luckily no one was hurt. By the way, in this day and age, there's really no excuse for driving under the influence. Get an Uber. Get an Uber. It's not worth what could happen. Meanwhile, if you're relying on mass transit, may not be the safest bet. In fact, you might be better off on the death machines. Why? Do you remember over the weekend, we told you the story, that on Saturday, the East Side light rail system was shut down because somebody stole all the copper wiring, and it shut down the light rail system. You know, the brand new light rail system that they just opened, what, in December, January or something, the East Side one? Just opened that sucker? Okay. Well, guess what? It happened again on Tuesday. When I saw this story yesterday, all right, we track the news here. You may not pay as much attention to the Como News site as we do. I saw the same headline, but I saw updated, and it was in yellow. When it's updated in yellow, that means there's new information. I said, oh, did they find somebody? Is it one of our unsheltered neighbors, perhaps? The updated information was that it happened again on Tuesday. Copper wire thieves struck the light rail again, this time near the Bell Red station, damaging the power system along the sections of track between Overlake Village Station and Redmond Technology Station. Buses replaced service in the affected area. Now, this is adding on to how many thefts is this? So before these two, the Washington State Department of Transportation said there have already been 30 reported wire thefts across the Seattle metro area this year, surpassing the 25 reported during the same period in 2024. Mike, we broke another record. Woo! He's going for the record. We're like those people in the trailer park of The Last Starfighter. He's going to break the record. That's what we're doing here. Yeah, so now we paid for this thing that most people don't take because it's not connected to Seattle, and now we have to keep fixing the thing because our unsheltered neighbors I'm sorry, I shouldn't assume that. Because copper wire thieves, who are most likely our unsheltered neighbors, keep stealing pieces of it? Wow. Man, it's amazing. Dow Constantine's doing a great job, isn't he? Since he took over the light rail, the Sound Transit, he's doing a bang-up job. Record copper wire thefts. Really, really just fantastic. And how are we paying for the light rail? Well, those of you that live in the RTA areas, and for those of you who don't live in our area and don't know what that means, certain parts of Washington are required to pay ridiculous amounts of money to register their cars so that you could pay for the light rail. So, for example, you may have to pay to renew your car tabs, which is car registration to anybody who doesn't live in Washington. They're little stickers you put on your license plate. let's say your car is just a couple of years old. It might be $500, $600, $700. We played that clip last week of the Tesla owner who found out it was over $1,000 annually to re-register their car. $1,000 annually. Well, because it costs so much money, a lot of people say, like the Ari Hoffman model, they say, why would I pay for my car tabs when if I get a ticket, it's cheaper? It's cheaper. Carfax is now reporting that 600,000 people are driving in Washington with expired car registrations. At the lowest end, this would cost the state $25.6 million. The state said they do not keep track of this data. Hang on. There's so much to unpack in just those 3 bullet points from Fox 13. So, 600,000 people are driving in Washington with expired car registration. You know what that means? There is the Laffer curve. The Laffer curve shows how much money you're not going to bring in when people go, it's not worth paying the taxes anymore and move or go somewhere else or get priced out. So a lot of people are saying, this is so damn expensive, I'd rather pay the ticket. And with no cops around, I'm never going to get caught. So why not do it? So you've reached that point here in Washington. That means the state is now losing money it would have otherwise had. Now think about it this way. If everybody's paying $100, I know we all vote for $30 car tabs, but $100, we'd complain, but we'd probably all still pay it, right? Because the ticket's $150, right? So you'd say, you know what? Better to just pay the stupid thing and be done with it. We voted for $30 car tabs, and even though we voted for it, the Washington State Supreme Court said we're going to back up our Democrat buddies, we're going to back up the light rail, and we're going to chuck that out, throw out the will of the people. I remember that. But now, $25.6 million at the low end of the estimate, which means it's probably closer to 40 would be my guess. The state says they don't track this data? Why would the state not track this information? You guys are the ones who claim you have this massive budget shortfall. And yet, $25.6 million of it, I know that's a drop in the bucket. I know that's a drop in the bucket to you people in government that love jacking up the taxes on us. So wait a second. Because you guys aren't tracking this kind of stuff and because you've priced so many people out of the market, you are now down $25.6 million when you just announced the other day that you've got another massive budget shortfall. If you're not tracking this, what else aren't you tracking? What other revenue aren't you tracking? What other things aren't you auditing? Who's not doing the job here? Now, by the way, here's something else. The $25.6 million is the estimate based on the lowest base fee of $43.25. Hey, that sounds really close to $30 car tabs, doesn't it? But is anybody here actually paying $43.25 to register their car? No, otherwise we wouldn't be complaining. I think the last time I registered a car here in Washington, because the math here is the only place where a car appreciates in value. They ain't all collector's cars, guys. Hate to break it to you. This is the only place where car values go up. The last time I looked at my car, at my Charger, I think it was $600 to register my Charger. And I said, screw it. I said, how about no? I said, it's cheaper to get the ticket. And it looks like a lot of other people in Washington are doing the exact same thing. I'm curious from you guys. Are you still paying your car tabs or have you given up entirely? Because when I drive down the street, I see more and more expired tabs. And I go, oh, those are listeners to the Ari Hoffman Show, clearly. I go to the Warrior Injury Law studio line, take a call from James in SeaTac. James, what's up, man?
Hey, I got my dad's car from California, and I brought it up here, and it's got California license plates expired in 20, and it's been up here ever since, and I don't plan on giving the state of Washington any amount of money because we passed a $30 car tab. So how many times? 4 times?
Yep, exactly right. And yet they keep trying to tax us and tax us and tax us and tax us. And it seems like you're not alone, James. By the way, I've noticed this thing too. A lot of people have out-of-state plates, which are expired, the ones that do tabs. Most of them, like New York, we used to have it on the windshield instead. But here, they're all expired. And nobody's going to track it. Nobody's going to check on it. I bet you if I got a plate that said out of time, like the Back to the Future one, or KITT for KIT, or Ecto 1A, I could probably drive around and not get ticketed. It's insane. James, appreciate the call. Appreciate the perspective. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, you give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Mel texts me and says, I have 11 vehicles, cars, trucks, Harley, 4 trailers, and my motorhome, all expired in 20. I've not renewed any of them. It's like, yes, exactly. Jason from Lacey says, proof that at least 600,000 people listen to Ari Hoffman. Yes, I like that number. I like that thinking. That's excellent. We go back to the Warrior Injury Law Studio line. Take a call from Bennett. Bennett, what do you disagree with me about today?
Jet.
Oh, Jet. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Right?
Sorry, I thought you were somebody else. Go ahead, man.
No, I'm saying Jet. Am I doing it right?
Huh? No. Oh, wait, you're calling about the contest? If you call in, you don't win, dude.
Yes, I know. I'm being stupid. I'm like, Jet.
You threw me off. Oh, you threw. Oh, Death. Sorry, it is you, Bennett. You had me confused for a minute there, man. Maybe I'm losing my hearing at my old age. What's going on, man?
Yes, I'm making fun of your listeners who can't follow directions, obviously. And now I'm feeling
That's
like
not nice. I get mad at them when they make fun of you, Bennett. Don't do it. I don't read the texts on air they send me after you're on the show. Don't do that, man.
Oh, you should. I would probably think they were fun. I loved it when you said, when I'm wrong, I admit. But then you're like, well, when I'm wrong, Bennett will call me. And then I will admit it. I was listening.
What are you mad about today, Bennett? Go ahead. Get to the point, man.
Well, no. So I was listening to what you said about Love Island, and I didn't see the bit with the Israeli and the Palestinian sucking face on the show. But you were talking about all the people intolerant saying, "Oh, you should never be kissing an Israeli." But so I don't know your feelings on this, but every source I've seen said that interfaith marriage is actually still not legal and still not recognized in Israel. Did you talked about on the show, or what are your feelings about that?
So that's a very long conversation. That's a religious thing. And it's not recognized with regards to Judaism, with regards to the right of becoming a Jewish a citizen of Israel, because you have to be Jewish in order to get all the perks of certain aspects of moving to Israel. Anybody can move to Israel, but if you want those certain perks, you got to be Jewish.
Okay. I mean, it just seems odd that, in a country that most of Congress talks about as like an ally and a beacon for human rights in the Middle East, even to this day, it's not legally recognized. For
No. The marriages are recognized. You don't get to get all the Jewish benefits, Bennett. That's the difference there. You still get to be in the country. You could still serve in the Israeli army. You could still be prime minister of Israel. You can still do all that kind of stuff. It's just a matter of the Jewish benefits. You want to say that's discriminatory? You want to say that's exclusionary? You can say that, but it's a religious thing tied to Jewish religion kind of stuff. And you know what? When people get mad at me when I say, hey, this person isn't Jewish who's part of these protesters, a lot of these people are products of that. And if you want to have that discussion, I don't have time for it right now. It is a longer, more legit conversation. And in fact, Bennett, I'll encourage you, the next time I'm speaking at UW or somewhere else, come and let's have a longer conversation about that, okay?
Well, I'd be interested in, the how and the why. Every source that I've checked said that interfaith marriage was still technically not recognized in Israel. Are you saying that's not the case? Are you saying that's not true?
I'm not saying it's not recognized. What I'm saying is for the perks that Jews get when they move to Israel, that's what it's talking about. So if you want to get into a longer, more complicated discussion about this, I'm more than happy to do it. I just don't have half an hour to an hour right now to go through it with you. It's a religious thing.
Okay.
Because Judaism follows the maternal line, not the paternal line. So you always know the reason, the thinking behind that is you always know who your mom is in theory. So that's the thinking behind it. It's a much longer conversation, which one day, you know what? We got open line at 5 o'clock. Happy to have that discussion at a longer time. Bennett, appreciate the call. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Looks like a ton of you want to weigh in on this car tabs thing. So when we come back, my friends, that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to take your calls, we're going to take your texts, and also tell you about some crazy news involving Cobra Kai and Puyallup, Washington. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome back to the Ari Hoffman Show. Just a reminder, you have until 5 o'clock to enter that keyword from 4 o'clock for your chance to be entered to take the trip or keep the cash. Also coming up at 5:45, your chance to win fantabulous prizes, including a $50 Daniel's Broiler gift card and tickets to the King County Fair. Yet another reason, always keep your radio tuned. 570 KVI, left on your dial, always right on the issues. You can also stream us at KVI.com, download the KVI app, or, of course, subscribe to us on whatever your preferred podcast platform is. Looks like everybody wants to talk about their car tabs today, so we go to the Warrior Injury Law studio line. Take a call from Debbie in Tacoma. Debbie, what's going on?
Well, hi, Ari. So I agree with you 100%. I have two vehicles. One is a 22 Subaru Outback, and my other one, which I've traded in, was a Tesla Y, and they came due on the same month. My Subaru was $640 renewal, and the Tesla was $1,227.
$1,200 for a green energy. $1,200? That's crazy.
Yes. There were two EV taxes added on to it because obviously we're not paying the gas tax. So, they want you to buy these things, and I love my Tesla. I traded it in for another Tesla. But when these tabs come due, I'm not paying them.
Yeah.
And I didn't pay for, I haven't paid for my Subaru, and I did not pay, I drove a year with the Tesla without paying tabs. I refused. That's ridiculous. And as the guy said before, we voted $30 tabs.
Yep.
$30 tabs.
Yep. And I'll tell you something else. The one time this bit me in the butt was when my son was taking his driving lesson, his driving test.
Right.
He wanted to take it on the car he learned on, and I didn't even think about it. But what happened was he goes and the tabs were expired. They wouldn't let him take it on that car, and he had to use. Yeah, so that was a problem, and I had to go register the car again. Yes, there was a brief moment last year when I actually had my cars registered. I just gotten my Charger. That one I had to do, and for whatever reason, I had to actually my cars. But they've all long expired since then. It's crazy. How do people afford this, Debbie?
Highway robbery. I mean, it's truly
literally
highway robbery.
Literally highway robbery.
And I'm done with the taxes in this state. I honestly. So anyway, it's been a pleasure talking to you. I think you're brilliant. And
thank you. Thank you. That's so nice of you to say. You should put that as a testimonial, a review on the podcast. Ari Hoffman is brilliant. You can put that right up there, too.
I actually believe you are.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Can you tell my 8th grade English teacher that? Because I think there were some challenges there. Would you mind doing that for me? Okay, just making sure. Debbie, appreciate the call. Appreciate you being part of the show. Thanks for the kind words. We go back to the Warrior Injury Law studio line. Take a call from Sheila in Tacoma. Sheila, what's going on?
Hi, I totally disagree with your listeners, and I'm actually appalled that Republicans that are called themselves Republicans and stand for the Constitution, that you all would not pay your license tabs, and you would just get up and get out and do the initiative process again.
Well, see, here's the thing, Sheila. You're right. Sheila, you're right. I'm going to agree with you. All of us are wrong, and you're right. And in fact, this is something that gets thrown in my face with people who disagree with me all the time, and I am admitting it right now. You are right. I am wrong. But what happened the last time? What happened the last time we did the process and got these things approved? What happened last time?
It got thrown back in our face. But with that said, Ari, and you are intelligent, by the way.
Thank you.
And you're a good replacement for Kirby.
Thank you.
But the fact of the matter is how can we then complain about the Democrats stacking the courts, the smaller courts, and them doing things to the courts instead of through the legislative process if we don't do that 100% of the time? That's why, I don't blame people. We have 5 cars, and I pay all the tabs for my cars.
And Sheila, I'm going to tell you this. You are right, and I am wrong. I am, okay? You are following the law. But a lot of people like me just go, hey, you know what? Are we talking about a felony here? Are we talking about a civil infraction? If all we're going to get is a fine, right? Which it is a fine. It's a civil infraction. If we're going to do that, this is the thing, is that you are doing it the right way by the law, 100%. But think about a lot of people, for example, who can't even afford that because they bought a car, didn't know these rates were going to keep going up and up and up and up, and we've hit the Laffer curve, especially when we've done the process to get these things. We voted on this thing in the Supreme Court of Washington because they're so in bed with the Democrats, is just, hey, we don't care what you guys voted for. You know, I have the same argument over ballots, for example. People say to me, well, Ari, I don't want to do ballot harvesting, and I don't want to do any of this stuff. And I go, yes, but if you don't do it, because that's the law in our state, then you know what? We're going to have a problem, and we're not ever going to win an election again. Sheila, I appreciate you calling and disagreeing with me. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, you give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. We go back to the Warrior Injury Law studio line. Take a call from Josh in Auburn. Josh, what's up, man?
Hey, Ari, first-time caller, but this hit a hot button for me because I have 5 cars, and I finally just bought a piece of property, a 1,000-square-foot bungalow that I Airbnb over in Sandpoint, Idaho, and I moved all 5 cars to the state of Idaho, licensed them all there, and I carry my insurance now through the state of Idaho, and my insurance costs went from $750 a month down to $375 because this state is outrageous, and my tabs were cut down to about 10 to 15% of the total cost in this state. But it doesn't stop there. I'm going to give you one more fact. In Idaho, my property taxes a year ago for my bungalow were about $2,600 a year. This year they came in at $2,000 a year, and they sent me a nice little letter that said, hey, in the state of Idaho, when we have a surplus, we actually give it back to the property tax, the people paying property taxes throughout the state, which just reinforced it even more why this state is so screwed up.
Yeah, I completely agree, Josh. In fact, I've got a relative who's got a piece of property out in the middle of nowhere, Washington. And his cars, I keep telling him to register them out there because they're never going to be in the zone. Nobody's ever going to be out there, and that's the place to do it. But a lot of people are doing what you're doing, and they go and get their gas in Idaho, and they buy other things in Idaho. They go down to Portland because there's no sales tax, so they can do big purchase items. This is the kind of stuff that people do when you push them with the Laffer curve. Appreciate the call. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, you give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. We go back to the Warrior Injury Law studio line, take a call from John in Issaquah. John, what's up?
Hey, Ari, how are you?
Doing good, man. What's going on?
Good. Hey, so I totally agree with not paying your tab fees.
Yeah.
You know, because they're ripping us off.
Yeah.
But the problem is I just ran into this issue the other day when I called AAA, and AAA will not pick you up if your tabs are not, if your tabs are expired, not up to date, they will not pick you up.
Oh, that's an important thing to know. Yep, that's a good thing to know.
I didn't know that. I learned the hard way.
Yep, that's a very good thing to know.
Massive deal.
Yeah, that's huge. That's a problem. So, yeah, that's definitely something to keep in mind. Thanks for the tip and the cautionary tale, John. We appreciate it. Appreciate the call. You want to be part of the show, you give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Got time for one more. Go back to the Warrior Injury Law studio line. Take a call from Brian in Olympia. Brian, what's up?
Hey, Ari, I listen to you daily, but I got a bone to pick with you today.
Yeah.
So with that housing money that you said that the state's handing out, you said there's a whole bunch of different groups, and we need to just kind of dump the white people.
No. Wait, hang on. Hang on. That's not what I said. Not what I said. Okay, let me clarify this for anybody who got mad at me. Let me clarify this. What I said was the case they were doing. The case they were doing was on behalf of white people, and by the way, they are being discriminated against. I said what you should be doing also is by including the Jews and the Asians and everything else, because then your leftist judge's head is going to explode when they're faced with this case. I think everybody is being discriminated against in this law. I think white people, Jewish people, Asian people. But how much fun would it be to watch that leftist judge go, wait, which one do I side with? Which minority group? Oh, my God, my head's exploding.
Well, the bottom line, Ari, is none of them. We're Americans, by God, and we don't seem to ever face that anymore.
Exactly.
And that's Jewish and Latinos and blacks and whites and anybody else.
You know,
that's all I got, sir. Thank you much.
Oh, no, you're right. I saw a great post the other day. It was a post of all the TV dads in the 1990s, and it had Uncle Phil. And it had Carla Winslow from Family Matters, and it had all these TV dads. And it goes at the end of the '90s, racism was basically gone. We brought it back with all this kind of insanity. Brian, great call. Appreciate you being part of the show. Appreciate you helping me clarify that matter. You want to be part of the show, give us a call or text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. When we come back, those Democrats just want more of your money, and now they're claiming we have another budget gap. Representative Travis Couture is going to join us to discuss how Democrats can't do math and also how their mistakes are closing essential services. I'll tell you all about it when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Well, my friends, in a bombshell yet not surprising announcement earlier this week, we found out that Washington State is once again going to have a budget gap. Why? Because of Democrats overspending. Meanwhile, Bob Ferguson is attempting to blame the entire thing on Donald Trump. Let's be clear, guys. We haven't lost any federal funding yet. We don't look like we're going to be losing it anytime soon. And if they didn't want to lose it, all they have to do is follow the law. Joining us now to discuss on the Warrior Injury Law studio line is Representative Travis Couture from Allen, Washington. Thanks for being back with us today, buddy.
Hey, thanks for having me on again, Ari.
Always a pleasure. Now, when I saw this, like I said, big announcement, but not surprising. They did pass the largest tax increase in Washington State history for a non-existent budget gap, which was first $6 billion, then $8 billion, then $10 billion, then $12 billion, then 14, then 18. Apparently, they only believe in even numbers for these fake estimates. And now they're saying, well, you know, we got our math wrong and we're short again.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, I actually predicted this like probably 50 times throughout the session, but of course they never listen. House Republicans and many others like yourself saw this day coming. But of course, like you said, they raised the largest tax increases in state history, an 8% increase in reckless spending, all to which benefited politicians, bureaucrats, and criminals. But at the end of the day, it was balanced so thinly. So just kind of the timeline here as we left the session, the budget had a $250 million end fund balance. And in context, that's in an almost $80 billion budget. But then after subsequent vetoes, the end fund balance was only $80 million, which is dangerously low. But then we got the new economic revenue forecast back that projects how much revenue we will take in the future. And that projected that we were going to be down almost a little over $1 billion in the next 4 years compared to where we thought we'd be at just last March. That was easy to predict for budget writers like me, but they didn't listen. So now we're basically in the hole. I mean, we got a $2 million end fund balance in the first 2 years. And in the second 2 years of the 4-year period, we're in the hole $331 million. So overall, the budget is not balanced anymore, as it was so thinly balanced before. So literally, after they passed the largest tax increases in state history, they spent us into oblivion before the ink could even dry on the budget and the governor's signature. And they don't really think that there's a problem. They'll come back next session and do something about it. But the problem is, what will they do about it? Is it more tax increases? Is it more spending cuts on single mothers on the edge of poverty? Is it more Medicaid cuts that they always complain that Trump is doing, but yet, in fact, they are doing on the state level, the Democrats? And so, it remains to be seen what they will try to do about that. But obviously, myself and other Republicans will be coming out with some more responsible budget cuts and reforms and in order to get us to a place where we have a fiscally sane budget situation. But just to put it in context for people at home, Ari, let's say you make $80,000 a year. This would be equivalent to ending your year with $2 in the bank. I mean, that's just totally reckless and ridiculous, and you're just one small disaster away. And for the governor to go off and try to gaslight us all and deflect and blame the Trump administration for all of this, well, the forecast was pretty clear. It's less sales tax revenue, it's less construction jobs, it's less here in Washington State, and it's less home building and home permits and real estate excise taxes. So it's a direct result of Democrat policies, and there is this Laffer curve where if you tax too much, you start seeing diminishing returns, and that's exactly what we're seeing in these forecasts. It's totally predictable, but yet they couldn't budget their way out of a wet paper bag. They're so incompetent. And instead, they just keep spending more money on illegal immigrant health care services that put the rest of our federal funds under threat, and not to include the transgender athletes and female sports and other things in the school space that's threatening our federal funding to schools. And that's all as a result of statewide Democrats elected to statewide office who are making radical ideological decisions and trying to blame it on everybody else.
I don't know what you're talking about, Representative Couture, because Bob Ferguson said he was going to make things more affordable. He said we were going to build more housing, and yet every single policy he does is completely to the contrary of that. I mean, they did pass the largest tax increase in Washington state history and still couldn't get their numbers right. And now on top of that, let's go back in time. At the beginning of the session, he said, here's $4 billion worth of cuts, which I said, that's good. It's not enough. Doge Washington has found another $2 billion in cuts. You would have been all the way there to the original numbers they gave us, which were fake, also about a budget gap. You would have been there if we had worked together, but he wasn't interested in that. Instead, he cut only $25 million, and he said he was protecting essential services. But as we've seen, he wasn't protecting essential services because he defunded, cut funding literally for treatment for a center where infants get treatment when they're born drug addicted because of their drug addicted parents. What's the latest on that?
Yeah, so just so people know, the PIC, as we call it, which stands for Pediatric Interim Care Center, is a center that has been around for 35 years in Kent, Washington, here in this state, that is serving babies who are born addicted to hard drugs like meth, cocaine, heroin, fentanyl, and they get referred by the Department of Children, Youth, and Families, these babies, to the PIC Center, and they spend about 30 to 40 days there, and it's amazing work. They come in, and it's just heartbreaking, the primordial screams of these babies who are going through terrible withdrawals, the pain, the shakes, the contortion of their little tiny bodies. It put tears in my eyes when I went there yesterday for probably what will be, if nothing changes, the last legislative tour of the PIC Center. And you know what's saddening to me is that every single governor since the PIC Center has been around has visited the PIC Center, held those babies, and vowed to not only fund but help the PIC Center with their mission. But Governor Ferguson is the first governor in state history to, since the PIC Center was created, to not only not visit the PIC Center, but also deny a visit and decline a visit to the PIC Center, not even having the guts to face down or even say thank you for the service of the PIC Center after 35 years of stellar service to the state of Washington for our most vulnerable babies in our entire population. And it's amazing to see how they come in and then they leave a fat, happy, smiley little baby. At the end of this 30 to 40 days, they do incredible work. But a lot of it is fueled by private donations from philanthropists and politicians of both sides of the aisle, Democrats and Republicans. This is a legacy built by the community, and that has helped hundreds and hundreds of babies every single year. But Department of Children, Youth, and Families, because of the Keeping Families Together Act, does not want babies to go and get healthy at the PIC Center anymore, so they stopped referring them, and now they're canceling their contract. So they would get $700,000 a year almost annually from the legislature. Democrat budget writers slashed that, and then Republicans fought back to try to just get a lifeline of $100,000 just to keep them afloat. And then the governor just so callously vetoed that $100,000, bringing it down to $0 for the PIC Center. Now, they could have survived probably for another year just based off their private donations, which is plenty. But the problem is if you don't get babies referred to the PIC Center by Department of Children, Youth, and Families, you don't have any babies to serve. And so the Department of Children, Youth, and Families, which is a cabinet agency under Bob Ferguson, have basically canceled the contract to the PIC Center. And so the PIC Center, after 35 years and becoming a nationwide model of excellence that's been copied in multiple other states, and including across our state, is going to be shuttered. That whole legacy is going to be killed, and those babies will lose all the hope they have, because what the Department of Children, Youth, and Families wants to do is keep them in expensive, 10 times more expensive hospital and environments that are traumatic sensory-wise for those babies. And right after that, when the hospitals are overcrowded, you know where they send them? Right back home to their drug-abusing mother for them to die under the Keeping Families Together Act. And so this whole thing is not about money. It's not about anything. It's about radical leftist ideology that is murdering little babies needlessly. And it makes me sick. I don't understand how you couldn't even have the guts for the governor to go to the PIC Center and at least face down the legacy of 35 years and the help for all these small little infants who were born, unfortunately, addicted to drugs. He couldn't even face down them while ending their contract. And every single claim that DCYF makes about the PIC Center is completely untrue. It is just totally fabricated, and we know this because the DCYF hasn't even visited the PIC Center in multiple years. They have never once breached their contract. They have never once went and said they have any concerns with the PIC Center. They just want to end it for ideological reasons and gaslight the rest of us that PIC wasn't doing its job. But they are the nationwide model that started this whole thing. It's a great thing. And honestly, the money is budget dust in comparison to everything else. But it just once again shows how Fentanyl Ferguson wants to run around and murder the lives of everyone around us with his radical ideologies. And it makes me absolutely sick. So we have 5 days. I need everyone's help. I need your help, Ari. I need all the listeners' help to try to push this out there and try to get Bob Ferguson and Tana Sen, the Secretary of DCYF, to reverse course, extend that contract, even without new money for a while, and let's work on it. But we got to keep this center intact. I mean, we absolutely have to, and we don't have much time to act. We only have 5 days.
Travis Couture, we appreciate you bringing this to our attention because this is a place, we had a firefighter call the show when we first talked about the story, who was in near tears because he knows the good work this place does and doesn't know where he's going to bring those babies anymore. If we can save the pick, that's what we all have to work to do. So I'm going to make sure to post this online with ways you could help, but make sure you contact the governor's office and say they have to save this center so we can help these children. Representative Travis Couture from Allen, Washington, thank you so much for joining us today, buddy. Really do appreciate it.
Hey, thank you so much, Ari. I appreciate you.
Always a pleasure. We got a whole lot more to discuss as the show continues. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome back to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Just a reminder, coming up at 5:45, your chance to win fantabulous prizes, including a $50 Daniel's Broiler gift card and tickets to the King County Fair. Yet another reason, always keep your radio tuned to 570 KVI, left on your dial, always right on the issues. You can also stream us at KVI.com, download the KVI app, and, of course, subscribe to us on whatever your preferred podcast platform is. Remember to rate while you're there. A whole bunch of you had some very nice things to say about the show when you called in earlier. That's so nice of you. Would you mind putting them down as ratings on the podcast on whatever platform you use? We'd really appreciate that. That's very, very nice and very, very kind of you. Also, don't forget, you have just under 7 minutes to go to our text line, 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. And enter the word we gave you at 4 o'clock. I am not giving it out again. Your next chance to win is coming up at 8 a.m. tomorrow during the morning ride with Phil and Zach. Sad news out of Hollywood today. Lalo Schifrin. He's the composer of a whole bunch of themes, including this one. Passed away today at the age of 93. The Argentinian won 4 Grammys, was nominated for 6 Oscars, including 5 for original score for Cool Hand Luke, The Fox, Voyage of the Damned, and Amityville Horror Show, and The Sting 2. He also wrote the grand finale musical performance for the World Cup Championship in Italy in 1990, in which the 3 tenors sang together for the first time. That work became one of the biggest bestsellers in history of classical music. He was also a jazz pianist and a classical conductor and had a remarkable career in music. So very sad news out of Hollywood today. Speaking of sad news out of Hollywood, well, actually, I don't know if this is sad or just kind of confirmation bias. It turns out that Martin Kove, he plays the bad guy in Cobra Kai, the bad guy from Karate Kid, the bad guy in Rambo 2. Rambo 2. That's right. He's in that. He's the bad guy in everything. He's always the bad guy.
Please. It's Rambo: First Blood Part 2.
Right. Another movie with stupid title legislation.
It's not my fault. That's what happens when you put needless punctuation in your movie titles. I'm going to call it out every time.
Oh, it's so stupid. It's so dumb. So, John Kreese, the evil sensei from Karate Kid 2, and Karate Kid 3, by the way. Turns out he's really a jerk in real life. So we did a story yesterday where we spoke about how he bit one of his co-stars while he's here at a convention at the Puyallup Fairgrounds, by the way. By the way, Mike and Kevin noticed about this video. The video was taken at the exact spot the KVI booth was at the last time we were there for the spring fair. And I look closely and I'm like, oh my God, you're right. It's not just, they have benches every so often. No, it's probably that exact spot where we were standing where this video was taken from. Now, give a listen to the video.
I'm like, I recognize that bench. That's literally the same spot.
That is
right across from the Earthquake Burger. I get it. Right outside the showplex.
We know right where that was. So this
spent a lot of time at the fair.
We spent a lot of time at the fair. So people almost died at the fair. What happened here? This is the video from, I believe it's the police officer body cam, when the police showed up to be like, dude, you bit this lady.
You cannot bite people. That is not okay.
That is assault.
And it's 100% up to her if she wants to pursue charges. I'd like to understand why you did that.
I apologize. I was just playing because we're very playful together. And I bit down too hard, and I meant to
She's got a mouth mark on her.
I know.
No, we do not play like that.
I apologize.
No, I am really pissed.
By the way, something fun about this little interaction, it's the exact same interaction their characters had in the movie. So, I mean, the TV show. So for those of you who haven't watched Cobra Kai, she's also a quasi-evil sensei. I'm not going to go through her whole origin story, but there's like a battle for the super evil sensei's love between him and her. So this whole thing is kind of entertaining, and they're kind of resorting to their characters in this.
You have left a mark on my body, which in your 80-year-old brain you think is play. Sir, were you raised in a ditch?
Sir, you call him sir. Oh, it's playful? She doesn't sound like that's playful. Not at all. John Kreese loses his students, loses his dojo, gets his bloody knuckles. And now the nice lady who was kind of a mean lady, but now is a nice lady in the Cobra Kai world, she's calling the cops on you because you bit her. Yeah, now the Cobra Kai's over. I don't see much of a future for Martin Covey except for maybe residuals. Lots more to discuss as the show continues, my friends. When we come back, final hour free-for-all, your calls, your texts. Plus, we're also going to talk about how Democrat Party should just be renamed the Socialist Party. We'll tell you what's going on when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI's final hour free for all. Your calls, your texts, your thoughts, your stories, streaming live at KVI.com and the KVI app. You want to be part of the most dangerous show on the airwaves? Call or text the Warrior Injury Law Studio line at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Coming up at 5:45, your chance to win fantabulous prizes, including $50 Daniel's Broiler gift card and tickets to the King County Fair. But before we get to any of that, L. Darthbo sent us a text. He says, the Democrat Party being renamed the Socialist Party. Yep, L. Darthbo is all in on that. Furthermore, for anyone now who would vote for a Democrat is definitely short on gray matter. Sorry for being truthful. And you know what? This leads in perfectly to what we were going to talk about this segment. And if you want to weigh in on this, you give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. Within minutes of Zoran Mamdani clinching the Democratic nomination for New York mayor, real estate agents were flooded with calls from clients looking to walk away from deals to buy apartments in New York City. And they're all luxury apartments, which means the rich people know he's coming for their money, and they don't want to be there anymore. Now, before I get to that story, you know what else happened within minutes of this guy Zoran Mamdani clinching the nomination? Let's remember who this guy is. A communist who only became a citizen of this country 7 years ago, who was raised with a silver spoon in his mouth. He's privileged, and he also hates Jews and hates America and wants to destroy this country. By the way, this guy checks every single box. You want to prove critical race theory is a thing that's based on critical theory? Critical theory was developed by the Soviet Union to take down capitalism. They added the race aspect because they realized that's how they could divide us. They added the hypersexualized content because they realized that's how they could divide us. This guy is a walking, talking ad for critical theory and critical race theory. That's who this guy is. And if he becomes the mayor of New York City, I am very, very, very concerned. I know a lot of people out there are saying this is a gift for the GOP. John Fetterman said it's Christmas in July for the GOP. No, I don't agree with you. By the way, James Carville said the same thing. I disagree with both of you. Do you know why? If he becomes mayor, you galvanize the movement of the far left who say this is the path forward. My friends, do we control the colleges? Do we control the universities? Do we control the high schools? Do we control the public schools at all? No. They are brainwashing the kids to go along with socialism. Within minutes of this guy clinching the nomination, do you know what happened? Every single Democrat endorsed him. Every single one who claims to be a moderate, left-leaning Democrat, they all endorsed him. By the way, you don't have to endorse anybody. This is going to be a very hard election coming up in 2026 and 2025. You know why? Because there's some races I don't want to endorse in. It just makes me nauseous. Seattle mayoral race. People say, Ari, you got to vote for Harrell. You got to endorse Harrell because otherwise we get Katie Wilson. What's the difference? No, really, what's the difference? Bruce Harrell's pretending to be a socialist to get reelected, and he's doing all these socialist policies. He just proposed this massive tax increase on businesses, even though he said that the tax on businesses is what caused a whole bunch of them to leave, that caused this budget gap in the first place. What's the difference between a pretend socialist and a regular socialist? What's the difference between a democratic socialist and a regular socialist? There is no difference between the two of them. For this, we bring in famed political consultant Vanilla Ice.
It's not the same. Ours goes ding, 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 diggy, ding, ding. Ding, 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 diggy, ding, ding. Ding, 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 ding. That's the way theirs goes. Ours goes ding, 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 diggy, ding, ding. Ding, 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 diggy, ding, ding. That little bitty change. It's not the same.
Yep, socialism, democratic socialism, not the same at all. Who elected Mamdani? It was all the elitists, all the college-educated white elite. Them. They're the ones who voted for this guy. Turns out the working class that he claims to represent, they didn't want him at all. And who are the ones endorsing him? Chuck Schumer and Jerry Nadler. Two of the biggest sellouts in the entire Congress. So they both claim they fight for Jewish values. They both claim they fight against anti-Semitism. Let me ask you a question, guys. For your Jewish constituents, do you think Mamdani is really the best guy? The guy who wants to shut down and tax any charities that do anything with Jewish people. The guy who wants to arrest Bibi Netanyahu if he comes to New York. The guy who on October 8th was praising Hamas and criticizing Israel. That guy. You think that's the best move for your Jewish constituents? And you both have a lot of them. Okay, forget the Jewish angle for a second. Do you think Mamdani, who wants grocery stores run by the city, do you think that guy who wants to bring back bread lines, do you think he's the best thing, perhaps? Do you think defunding the police is the best thing? Do you think all this money towards sex changes for juveniles is the best way to spend our money? Do you think that all these benefits for illegal immigrants is the best way to spend money? This isn't good for your constituents. This isn't good for your Jewish constituents. This isn't good for anybody. And yet you all endorsed him. Bill Clinton is the most shameless. Bill Clinton, the day before, endorses Andrew Cuomo, and then boom, what do you know? Right away flips on over to Mamdani. Just like that. And every single Democrat fell in line. You know, not too long ago here in Seattle, there was a discussion among the Democrat parties. I remember when they did this. They changed their rules. I think it was the King County Young Democrats. They changed their rules that a person didn't have to be a Democrat anymore to get endorsed by the Democrat Party. That was a long-time rule. In fact, it's actually screwed up the GOP before. The GOP says we're not going to endorse you unless you're a member of the GOP. So there were some libertarian candidates that had a shot if the GOP would get on board and they wouldn't endorse them. There were some issues like that. So the Democrats, why did they change that rule here? Because they wanted more socialists. They wanted people like Kshama Sawant, Democrat Socialists of America. By the way, Mamdani is a Democrat Socialist of America. You know those guys who had the picture of the hang glider in the rallies the day after October 7th, the Hamas hang glider? You remember all that? Yeah, them, those guys. That's who they're endorsing. The Democrat Party is no longer the Democrat Party. In fact, I'm going to try and be good about this, Mike. Mike, from now on, I don't want to refer to them as Democrats. There are Democrats, but the Democrat Party is no longer the Democrat Party. Their new standard bearer is this guy, Mamdani. And until he's not, we're going to call it the Socialist Party. Because who's actually running this party? AOC, Mamdani, Bernie Sanders. And if this guy is successful, let me tell you what comes next. What comes next is AOC running for president or vice president. Oh, you think I'm kidding? And you think we'll lose? You think they'll lose? Guys, that's a really bad assumption. There's a lot of dumb people out there, really dumb people, who assume that if there's a groundswell of support and they see a whole bunch of posts on social media, this is the popular one. Mamdani had a very good ground game with social media. Eric Adams, you put Eric Adams next to Mamdani, Mamdani's going to wipe the floor with him. You put Curtis Sliwa up against Mamdani, Mamdani's going to wipe the floor with him too. One of them has to drop out of the race right now. One of them does. And I actually think Eric Adams has a better chance than Curtis Sliwa. And Republicans, you want to get mad at me about that? I'm going to tell you, here's the thing, guys. Right now, he is polling really, really low. And here's something else. This guy lost one election already to Eric Adams. The two of them are going to split the vote. And you know who gets elected then? Mamdani. One of them needs to drop out, or you are guaranteeing that Mamdani wins. And I'll tell you something. I can't stand Eric Adams. I think he's been a disaster for New York. But I don't see Curtis Sliwa winning. If you disagree with me, you give me a call. 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. I got mad at Sean Hannity yesterday. I was talking about this. Sean Hannity, on his show, had Curtis Sliwa talking about how we need to support you and you need to win. Guys, he ain't going to win. He's not going to win. And Fox News holding him up and saying this is our guy just because he's saying he's a Republican. He's not going to win. Does that mean endorse Eric Adams? No, I'd be a hypocrite if I said that. But Eric Adams has a better chance against this psycho than Curtis Sliwa. I'm sorry. That's the actual case. You disagree with me, give me a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Because I'm telling you guys, this just ain't going to work out well. And the Democrats are going to see this as their new approach. What happened? The Democrats went so far left to try and appease their radical base, they became them. And they're so worried about losing power, they're holding on by their fingertips, endorsing people they don't agree with just so that they can stay in power. So 70-year-old Chuck Schumer, geriatric Jerry Nadler, and Nancy Pelosi, they all want to remain relevant. They all want to make it seem like they're on the cool kids table, and they're going to lose, and they're going to lose badly. You want to know the kind of people that are running the party now? People like Jamal Bowman. And you may say, wait a second, Ari, this guy's out of power. This guy lost badly. You think he can't make a comeback under these circumstances? Absolutely he can. This is what this lunatic was saying on CNN yesterday.
Catholic
And
pro-life
the problem
ministries
is
bombed.
we are not dealing
Catholic
with
pro-life
America's
ministries bombed. You're
original
right.
sin and its disease of hate and racism towards black and brown people and sexism towards women and anti-LGBTQ sentiment. We are not dealing with that. Your colleagues in the Republican Party do not hold each other accountable when it comes to the racism that comes from the party on a consistent basis.
Oh, stop. Oh, stop. You're a radical anti-Semite, right? You're mad you got bounced out of office because your constituents were Jewish and said, nope. And it was the Democrats that did it too. Is your party kicking out Ilhan Omar? Is your party kicking out Rashida Tlaib? Is your party kicking out AOC? Is your party kicking out anybody who made those most radical comments? No, of course not. But this is the nonsense that's going to come back with a vengeance if a guy like Mamdani gets elected. Now, you think I'm wrong about this? You think somebody else could win? You think we should back Andrew Cuomo? Oh, please. The Democrats don't have anybody else? The truth is the Democrats didn't want to put up anybody else. They want to make their base happy with Mamdani. They put up somebody normal instead, they're not going to win because the radicals and the college white elite types are going to keep voting for the radicals because they've been brainwashed by that system. We go to the Warrior Injury Law Studio line, take a call from Stephen in Auburn. Stephen, what's going on?
Hey, Ari, it's good to hear you. Hey, I was going to agree with you about something. There's a lot of stupid people out there because people are really stupid, but a person is smart, if I'm going to quote Men in Black.
Very
it's
good.
It's kind of true. It's kind of true. We're all going to follow in line, have some mob mentality sometimes going with stuff. We have to, get into the individuals here. We have to talk to people. I'm keying into when you keep telling us we have to go and talk to people about actual politics and actually get into something like this.
Yes.
And tell them, hey, this doesn't make much sense. It really doesn't.
Yes, I agree with me.
Agree.
I agree with me. I mean, I agree with you. That's where I'll say is that here's the thing. So many people, when they say, oh, the homeless again, and you look at them and you go, you're a Democrat, you voted for this. And they say, what are you talking about? They don't get it. And you still need to explain it to them. October 7th was a huge eye-opening thing for a lot of Jews. Donald Trump got the highest margin of Jewish votes of any president since George H.W. Bush. And now Mamdani, actually, he got the lowest amount of Jewish votes of any Democrat recently because they all said, we can't, even the lefty Jews are like, nope, we're not voting for this guy. Because you have the largest Jewish population in America, in New York City, and they're saying, no, we don't want anything to do with this guy. People's eyes are being opened. And it's opportunities like this guy, who is literally the poster child for everything the Democrats believe in. Open borders, anti-Semitism, raising taxes, redistribution of wealth, you name it, defunding the police. This guy is their poster child. And you got to use opportunities like this to show, guys, you didn't leave the party left you.
Exactly. I think for the majority of America, actually, we've had a little bit of a shift over, like the whole spectrum of everybody kind of shifting slightly left. And the Socialist Party is now going to be in control. They're going to have a lot of sway, especially because they have a lot of the people that are all angry at Trump, right? So they have a lot of emotional lead, too.
Yes, and I think they're going to ride that. Why do you think they keep going Trump? For example, Bob Ferguson the other day, right? Bob Ferguson comes out and says we have this massive budget gap, and it's Donald Trump's fault. No, Donald Trump had nothing to do with it, and Washington hasn't lost any federal funding yet. How is this Donald Trump's fault? It's 40 years of Democrat mismanagement and overspending that has done this. Donald Trump, last time I checked, he was president for 4 years, and he's been president for another one. So 5 out of 40. Whose fault is it? Steven, great call. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, you give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Oh, somebody texted me over some Hebrew here. Hebrew with English translation. This one says, Ari, I think wise King Solomon had it right in Ecclesiastes 10:2. A wise man's heart directs him toward the right, but the foolish man's heart directs him towards the left. Wait a second. Hang on. What does it say here? Belev chacham lamino, uvelev kisil l'smolo. Okay, now I got to go look this up, because if this is actually a quote in the book, because I can read the Hebrew, if this is actually a quote in the book, I don't know it by heart, guys. I'm sorry. I know I'm an Orthodox Jew, but I don't know the whole thing by heart. Now I'm going to do some Googling afterwards, because that's going to be my new tagline. That is going to be the new tagline. We're going to get real biblical up in here. This from Steve. Says, hey, Ari, good show today. Steve from Shoreline here. When the Floyd riots were going on here and I wanted to protest the city council's decision to defund our police, I came up with a nickname for the Democrats. I call them dead cats. No, let's just go. Funny. I like it. Well, let's just go with socialists, huh? Let's just stick with the Socialist Party, because that's what they want to be. David in Edgewood says, Seattle's proof there's a lot of dumb voters out there. Yep, 100%. 100%. And look what's happening here. Democrats are making gains because they've realized that they can galvanize the white liberal elitists and the college kids. That's what you're seeing happen in real time. Literally in real time. That's what's going on, and it's only going to get worse, my friends. It's going to get so much worse, because this is the direction they're going to go. And a lot of people, when you promise them free stuff, they go, I want the free stuff. Give me the free stuff. You mean I don't have to pay for the grocery stores anymore? You know what this is? This is a high school election. No, worse than that. This is a grade school election. So some kid comes in, and there's always the smart kid versus the popular kid in these elections. That's how it always goes down, right? So the smart kid comes in and goes, you know what? We've had a problem with the gymnasium. We don't have good gym equipment. My idea is to do a fundraiser to raise more money for the gym and all the sports teams. Woo! Woo! Love it. And this other kid comes in and goes, we have too much class. Who wants a free period? Woo! Free period. They can't deliver on that, but they promise that anyway. You know what? We're going to have barbecue day every day in the cafeteria, and when it's not barbecue day, we're going to have pizza day. That's literally what we're watching happen in real time. You say, who wants free groceries? Who wants a free apartment, rent control? Hey, rent control in New York was a colossal failure. It's still in effect, by the way. Who wants free this? Who wants to take away other people's money so you can have money? You know, these college kids, they all swaddled themselves with so much debt because the problem was none of them picked a major that could actually make them any money. They were convinced if you go to college, you get a good job. But instead, they majored in lesbian dance theory or underwater basket weaving or whatever the case may be, and those are not marketable skills. So now they're saddled with debt for going to college. They're brainwashed. And what has that actually accomplished? It's only made them little drones for the left. That's it. Lots more to discuss as the show continues, my friends. When we come back, the New York Times says, you know what? There's too much anti-Semitism from this Mamdani guy. Let's change how we define anti-Semitism. I kid you not. That's literally what they said. We'll discuss that plus a whole lot more. But first, Todd Herman's Daily Thoughtcast right now on the Ari Hoffman Show. Welcome back to the Ari Hoffman Show. Just a reminder, coming up at 5:45, your chance to win fantabulous prizes, including a $50 Daniel's Broiler gift card and tickets to the King County Fair, plus so much more. Yeah, another reason. Always keep your radio tuned to 570 KVI, left on your dial, always right on the issues. You can also stream us at KVI.com, download the KVI app, and, of course, subscribe to us on whatever your preferred podcast platform is. Remember, while you're there, to rate, subscribe, and share, so that way you never miss a minute of the show and can share it with your friends. The Babylon Bee has been on fire. I know we usually save this stuff for Fake News Friday. I'm sure Zach will have a few of these in his rundown, but the Babylon Bee, the parody site, says, Mamdani vows to knock down the World Trade Center to build more affordable housing, which was just... Oh, I don't usually like the 9/11 jokes, but that was a good one. They have another one here. Hamas claims responsibility for New York City mayoral primary, which that was another good one right there. There was non-stop of these. In fact, I'll save the rest for Zach. Zach can keep the rest of these, but they were also making fun of a New York Times column. New York Times had this opinion by M. Gessen. M. Gessen. I'm guessing what this guy was trying to say. That's what it was. The attacks on Zoran Mamdani show that we need a new understanding of anti-Semitism. Excuse me? Baking powder? So you don't like that the radical jihadi is being called out for being a radical jihadi, so you want to redefine anti-Semitism? Really? Guessing. I'm guessing about this guy's name for a second here. M. Wonder what the M stands for. Is this a guy or a gal? Somebody told me that the first name is Masha. Masha's a Yiddish type name. The Jewish guilt. I see what it is. You want your socialist candidate because you're a lefty Jew, and you're worried that your fellow Jews may not vote for the guy because he's a radical jihadi. So now you want to change the definition of anti-Semitism. By the way, this absolute garbage article by a person whose profile picture looks like they came out of a Tim Burton movie. No joke. You got to see this. They've got the weird glasses that are somewhat tinted, the weird hair sticking up. I mean, the skin complexion, the pallor. It looks like it's the blank page on Word with a little yellow sickliness in it. I don't usually make fun of a person's appearance because, you can't do much about that. But this person looks exactly how you thought. And them writing this article about changing the definition of anti-Semitism, if you read this Megillah that they wrote, what's it really about? It's about, well, yeah, this guy's a radical jihadi, but... we should be tolerant of our radical jihadi friends. You Jews just don't know that socialism will be better for you. That his ideas are really good, and you know what? You can deal with a little anti-Semitism in your life. Let me ask you a question. How has this method of thinking worked throughout the years? When Jews try to hide their appearances and who they are, you always get called out for it. Donald Trump didn't care if you had two Jewish parents or one Jewish parent. Donald Trump didn't care if you were an observant Jew or a non-observant. Not Donald Trump, excuse me. So when Donald Trump's doing this kind of stuff, he doesn't care at all. He just says, I'm going to help because it's a good thing. He says, I'm going to help these people because it's a good thing. Because these are people I want to help. And he says, I'm going to help the Jewish race because being nice to people and being tolerant of people and helping out people, that's the way we should go. Donald Trump says, I don't care what color you are. I don't care if you're Jewish. I don't care if you're black. I don't care if you're Asian. I'm going to help you out. Donald Trump was the first one to integrate. He bought a golf course and he integrated the golf course that he owned. And yet people call him a racist, which is mind-boggling to me. Absolutely mind-boggling to me that people still call him a racist over that. Donald Trump looks at people and goes, I don't care about your skin color. I don't care about your race. I don't care about your religion. He just did a whole tour of the Middle East and saying, in the Middle East, guys, you want to do business with us? You're our friends. You want to hate us? You want to blow stuff up? Then I don't want to be your friends anymore. That's what Donald Trump is all about. That's what the Republican Party is all about. What's the left all about? The left is all about, how can I divide you? How can I splinter you? How can I have more and more divisions about you? How can I make as divisive as I possibly can about you? What's the way we can do that? And you know what, guys? One party is about uniting people. One party is about dividing people. We talked earlier in the show about this housing loan business or this free down payment for people based on the color of their skin. That's what the left is all about. The left tells you why you should be afraid of Donald Trump. The left tells you why you should be afraid of Republicans. And which party's the one backing a radical jihadi? Which one's the one backing a radical jihadi for office? Yesterday, we did a story about a girl at Nathan Hale High School. This story has since gone mega viral. In fact, over on my social media pages for a second, I think I just looked on it right during the commercial break, how many hits this thing had. It was out of control, absolutely out of control. How many hits and things this thing had. I mean, this story has gone everywhere now. I was on Lars Larson show actually talking about it earlier today. 6,000 likes, over 1,300 retweets. This story here shows the difference between right and left. So at Nathan Hale, in Seattle Public Schools, which claims to be such a bastion of progressive ideology, you had a girl who was about to get mobbed by a whole bunch of kids in the school because she's Jewish. A mob came to the classroom looking for her because she's Jewish. That happened in a Seattle public school. And now the Democrat Party, the ones that claim to be oh so progressive, they are literally trying to elect a guy who claims that he is just a moderate, but has said so many radical things in the past. Oh, wait, he's not claiming to be a moderate. He's literally saying all his jihadi ideas. He's literally saying all his socialist ideas. And people are actually voting for this guy? I want to remind everybody about how divided this country was under Barack Obama. You all think it started with Donald Trump. It didn't start with Donald Trump. It started with Barack Obama. Barack Obama, it was always about blaming everybody. Who's to blame? Racism. Oh, if they don't like my policies, it's because they're racist. No, my friends. No, my friends. You know what it was? What it was with regard to Barack Obama, it was about separating people because he knew if you separate and divide, right out of the Alinsky playbook, if you separate and divide, you can conquer. Divide and conquer. And that's what Barack Obama did. That's what the left's doing. That's what Mamdani's doing. Oh, if you're against me, it's because you're a racist. People have lost their minds that they're going along with this guy. And I'm telling you, is that if this guy wins, the Democrat Party will be emboldened and the whole party will shift to the left. And while a lot of you say, Ari, this is good news, this is a good thing, this is what we should be excited for, yeah, no, it's not going to work out. Bruce says over on the text line, Mayor Adams, Cuomo, and Silwa need to have a face-to-face and decide which of them has the best chance at derailing Mamdani. 2 independents plus 1 Republican in New York City will get 8 million people a communist bum and an unlivable future for one of the greatest cities in the world. Businesses will flee. It will resemble street scenes in Looper. If Mamdani can keep homing out, the mishmash of street rabble will speak more tongues than Blade Runner. R.I.P. for New York City. Yeah, that's exactly what's going to happen. We go to the Warrior Injury Law studio line. Take a call from John in Lakewood. John, what's up?
Yo, hey, Ari. Yeah, I'm listening to, and yesterday you had a very impactful segment where you're talking about how the educational system is becoming more and more dangerous because as these young kids are indoctrinated in our schools, they're going to be the leaders of tomorrow. And it seems that these bad elements, the socialist indoctrination and teaching, I mean, there used to be outliers a number of years ago, but now it's institutionalized. There's institutionalized racism. It's infecting the accreditation organizations. And so you can take kids out of the private schools if you can afford to, but still you're going to be supporting public schools. And if your kids go to certain private schools, they may very well be indoctrinated there. So I'm trying to figure, like, how's this going to be addressed?
Yeah.
I'm just like grasping at straws, Ari.
Well, here's the thing. It's not the reason the Democrats are holding on so tight to the public schools, and the reason they're fighting Donald Trump, and the reason they're fighting him on Harvard and everything else. You go, wait, do you guys want anti-Semitism? Well, yes, that's one. But 2, they don't want to lose their indoctrination centers, and they don't want to lose the federal money for the indoctrination centers.
Yes.
They want to keep doing it.
It's become a self-perpetuating machine of money and pressure by the people who have that power now, and they hold the levers of power.
Yes.
How do you unseat that?
Yes, exactly. Exactly right. Great point, John.
And you're talking about people vacating states like Washington. And yeah, I understand why people want to leave, but yet people still have to stay here. But yet they're still going to be subjected to all of that pressure that they can't unseat because it's a trifecta in Olympia. These people control it all.
Yes.
How do you deal with that?
And but I'm sure it's Donald Trump's fault that we have this out of control spending, even though they've been in control for 40
I think
years.
that there's got to be a way. There's got to be some way to defund education. And
Well,
I don't know what it's going to take.
The first thing you got to do is get in power, but the other thing you got to do is, I sent that story yesterday, just like I said I would with Seattle Public Schools. I sent it right over to the Department of Education, waiting to hear back from them, and I'll tell everybody what I hear when I do. John, appreciate the call. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, you give us a call or text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. When we come back, my friend, Senator Chris Gilden will be joining us to tell us how bad this budget crunch is and what he thinks the Democrats are likely to do to try and solve it. We know they're not going to make cuts, so what does that mean for you? You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Well, shock, shock, my friends. Democrats can't do math. Yes, even after passing the largest tax increase in Washington state history, there is still a gap in our budget. Why? Because of declining revenues, all thanks to the Democrats who can't do math. Joining us now to discuss on the Warrior Injury Law studio line, Senator Chris Gilden. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Hey, thanks for having me, my friend.
Such a pleasure to have you back. So, how do we get to a place like this? Republicans came out with a very normal budget that made a few reasonable cuts and didn't increase any taxes whatsoever. The Democrats went along with this lie, and yes, I'm calling it a lie, that there was a budget gap when really it was their out-of-control spending and everything they want to spend in the future. And now we're still close to $1 billion in the hole despite this huge tax increase?
Yeah, well, I think you bring up a good point to kind of level set. Is back last November, just after the election, we started hearing about a budget shortfall, and at that time it was about $4 billion. It quickly jumped to 8, to 12, to 16. At one point, it was a $21 billion shortfall, is what the Democrats were saying it was. Well, all the while, I had asked the nonpartisan staff who do our budget, people with political blinders on, I said, what is the real shortfall that we're looking at? And they said it was about $6.5 billion at the time. They later had to adjust it during the next update. So $7.5 billion was the real budget shortfall. But still, even to this day, Governor Ferguson still insists that it's a $16 billion shortfall. And he just went along and signed off on, $9.5 billion of new taxes. As you said, the highest tax increase in our state's history.
Well, so here's the crazy thing about that. Bob Ferguson comes out with $4 billion in budget cuts that he proposes at the beginning of the session. The Democrats lose their mind and say no. So let's work with your $7 billion for a second, and let's assume it was 7. Let's give them some benefit of the doubt, even though I actually think it was less than that. But let's go with your numbers for a second and say it was $7 billion. He proposes 4. Some of the cuts we found in Doge, Washington added up to about $2 billion by my math, and they weren't partisan items. They were just wasteful spending items. 6, you're almost the way there. And yet, what does he do? He caves to the Democrats and only cuts $25 million as opposed to the $4 billion. I mean, if we have a $1 billion gap right now, or 780 or whatever number they're claiming, all he has to do is enact the cuts he originally suggested, and we'll have a surplus, right?
I had such high hopes whenever he came in his inaugural address, and he was saying all of the right things, right? He was saying things like, we can't rely on taxes. Our state is unaffordable. We can't put taxes on working families. All of these things he was saying. And then he turned around and just signed off on this huge tax increase. I don't know what happened between his inaugural address and when he signed that particular budget. But for me, it shows that he's weak. It shows that he's owned by the progressives and the special interest in our state. And this will be his legacy.
Yeah, and I don't think he can run for higher office anymore, because when you say the whole country, you passed the largest tax increase in Washington history, and you caved to the far left progressives in a country that's moving more to the right. I think we just ended his future ambitions right there, and I think he knows it. We're talking with Senator Chris Gilden about the Washington budget. Now, I'm looking at this thing, and practically speaking, we had some Republicans who voted for some parts of this thing too, whether it was transportation, gas taxes, things of that nature. So going forward, if the Democrats try to do something now, call a special session, what's going to be the Republican approach?
Yeah, so and I break it out between the three various budgets, right? So we have the operating budget, which is by far the largest budget, and that's what we're talking about with this shortfall. Then we have the transportation budget, which you mentioned includes gas taxes, and then the capital budget, which is think horizontal construction. But what we're talking about today is the operating budget, which is about $78 billion. And from this latest revenue forecast, we're going to end up with an ending balance of about $2 million. And whenever you start talking about billions and millions, people's eyes glaze over. But think about a family that makes about $100,000 a year. They just got a 10% raise. This is the equivalent of them having $3.50 in their bank account at the end of the year. It is reckless. It's just I don't even know how they can say that it's okay with a straight face.
Oh, don't worry. I'm sure none of the billionaires and millionaires will leave town. I'm sure they can just tax them a whole lot more in the next session, and everything will be perfectly fine, right? I assume that's their plan.
Well, it was really interesting to me because Ferguson's response to this revenue forecast, and I think it was a really bold move for him, was he just went back to the blame game. They raised taxes on working families, massive just misfire of the budget. It was almost out of balance before it even took effect, which would have been a huge embarrassment for them. And his first reaction is to come back and blame D.C. But I tell you what, you can't blame D.C. for the checks you write in Olympia.
Well, I'll tell you something else. You also can't blame it for 40 years of Democrat mismanagement in Olympia. Last time I checked, Donald Trump only became president in 2016. So really, good luck with that blame game there. Really, Senator Chris Gilden, thank you so much for being with us today. Really do appreciate it.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Always a pleasure. We got a whole lot more to discuss as the show continues, including your chance to win fantabulous prizes during our Good News giveaway. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. It is time to feel good as we wrap up another amazing episode of the Ari Hoffman Show right here on Talk Radio 570 KVI. And before we get to our good news giveaway, got some good news headlines for you. But before that, what happened to the sunshine, Mike? Oh, I know what they're going to say. Ari, don't you know you've been living here for 21 years and it gets sunny. We get our real summer after 4th of July. You know what? I'm tired of waiting. I'm sorry. I don't know why this year I'm more antsy. Is it because you teased me like 2 weeks ago and I said, oh, it's almost here. Oh, summer's here. Woo! Is it because I just got my Jeep Wagoneer EV that my friends over at Renton Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram gave me car washed and, of course, now it's going to rain? Is that why? Ugh, so frustrating. So frustrating. It's okay. We got some funny stories for you here. So this one here from Fall River, Massachusetts, according to WJAR, an R-rated parrot with a potty mouth that's up for adoption has gone viral as dozens of people have applied to be his next forever home. 2 months ago, Chantel Rogers, an administrative assistant at Forever Paws Animal Shelter in Fall River, received a blue and gold macaw. He was an owner surrender through animal control. We aren't sure of the details surrounding the surrender considering the supplies or lack thereof he came in with. We're thinking it was financial difficulties. The bird, which is believed to be about 30, by the way, you know parrots live like 100 years or longer or something like that. They live a really long time. Has been with its previous owner for at least 20 years. His species can live up to 100 years old in captivity if they're cared for properly. He was being fed human cereal, white bread, animal crackers, sunflower seeds. That's why he's missing most of his feathers. He wasn't getting any of the minerals, none of the vitamins, nothing that he needed. We've definitely seen him come out of his shell. When he first came here, he was terrified. According to Rogers, one night a few weeks ago, the staff realized the bird had quite the vocabulary. It was quiet in the shelter for once. There was nobody in the room with him. Everybody was up front and just heard him start cussing up a storm. We're not sure if he wasn't getting the attention he wanted. And this is his way of asking for attention. From there, he gets more comfortable and starts saying more, saying it louder, starting to say more words, make more noises and more comfortable. And he gets the more conversational he gets. So you know what this is, by the way? That's learned behavior. So my in-laws had a parrot. Mike, I don't know if I told you about their parrot. They had a parrot that spoke Hebrew. Yes, the parrot learned a few things. It learned my brother-in-law's bar mitzvah parsha. It learned the words, Amen. Like, it could do that kind of stuff. And they actually had to get rid of the parrot when my sister-in-law went to college because they latch on to people and they get very sad if they're not around. So they had to give up the parrot. Yes, my friends. So somewhere there might be a parrot in our area that speaks Hebrew. That's like the old joke. It reminds me of the old joke. Like 5 people are going to laugh at this joke, but it reminds me of the old joke. So Jewish guy wants to buy a parrot. Wants to buy a pet for his family. So he goes to the pet store that's right next to this huge yeshiva, this Jewish house of learning. And he says, I'd like to buy a pet for my family. And they go, well, this parrot's a very, very nice parrot. It could say all of the Torah, the entire Bible, by heart. He says, I don't believe you. And then right away, parrot starts going as if on cue, Bereshis bara Elokim et hashamayim v'et haaretz. Oh, my God, that's incredible. So says, what about that one next to him? Oh, him? He knows the entire Gemara, the entire Talmud by heart. By heart. Oh, I don't believe you. Oh, Meimotai, it's Korean Shema. Okay. Wow. Amazing. Incredible. Next one. What about that bird? Oh, no, you can't afford him. Why not? What does he do? We don't know, but the other two call him Rabbi. That's just, it reminded me of that old Jewish joke. Yes, it reminded me of that one, the parrot story. Now, apparently, thank you.
That's pretty funny. I know I was super late on that one, but that was legit funny.
That's okay. Mike actually enjoyed that one. Okay, so some people are laughing out there. Rogers named this bird Hendrix, not Rabbi. Okay, Rabbi Hendrix? All right. Quickly, she learned that the bird is not only colorful, but also his mouth. He mumbles the curse words to himself and sometimes shouts them out. By the way, birds, they can interact with humans. So if everybody's laughing every time it's cussing at them, it's going to think that's the right thing to do for attention, right? Just like a child. Okay, so one day I'm driving with my nephew in the back, and my nephew is having trouble saying dump truck. And instead he's saying dumb thing I can't say on air. And there's another kid who I'm driving carpool who's around the same age, and they're little. And I go, hey, buddy, what's that over there? And he goes, it's a dumb. And the other kid goes, you can't say dumb. That's a bad word. And he goes, why? It's just a dumb. And I'm dying laughing. I'm laughing the whole way to school driving these kids in the backseat. It was gold. I wish I'd taped it.
I would imagine that Ari's driving. He looks at, kid's not wrong.
In Seattle, especially. They're sitting in the back of the Charger as I'm driving, and every other word is dumb thing, not dump truck. Oh, it was great. My son, Jonah, loves the Transformers. Mike likes this. I think I told Mike this one years ago. Loves the Transformers, so he was calling anybody in school who was being mean or he didn't like a name of a Decepticon because they're the bad guys. Well, one of the Decepticons' names is Bulkhead. And he started calling everybody, let's just say it wasn't that. It was something, it sounded like something else. And we get a note home that Jonah is calling kids bad words. It's just because he had trouble saying bulkhead. That's what it was. He kept, yeah, well, whatever. It turned into Puckhead, and then it went downhill from there. Yes, you get where I'm going with that. Before I forget, your chance to win fantabulous prizes. No, not a bird, my friends, but we are giving away a $50 Daniel's Broiler gift card. Check out danielsbroiler.com to reserve a table, place your takeout, delivery order, and more. We are also giving away a copy of 7 Steps to a Successful Retirement by Brian Evans of Madrona Financial and a bonus of the Little Red Book of Retirement. Visit MadronaFinancial.com for more information and discover how you can create a rooted wealth plan today. Last but certainly not least, we're giving away 4 tickets to the King County Fair, July 17th through 20th. Yes, you can hang out with us from KVI because we will be there, plus all the fair fun. The fair to see since 1863. Grab your boots, get your tickets now for the King County Fair. All you have to do in order to win these fantabulous prizes is be caller number 10 at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Caller number 10 will win a $50 Daniels Broiler gift card, a copy of 7 Steps to a Successful Retirement, a bonus of the Little Red Book of Retirement by Brian Evans of Madrona Financial and CPAs, and 4 tickets to the King County Fair. Phone lines are open now. Give Mike a call for your chance to win at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Well, my friends, that's going to do it for us today. Fear not, we'll be back tomorrow with more insane stories, more exciting guests, and, of course, more giveaways. You've been listening to The Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI.